Chapter 1588. The Great Confinement Technique quickly hit Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua leaned to the side, seemingly unable to dodge in time. His entire body immediately stiffened and fell from the sky like a large rock. In the distance, Wu Hai, Zhuo Minghui, and Yan Qinglian were all dumbstruck. First, Xiaohua used the fireball talisman tactic to firmly suppress Xiang Yang, giving him no chance to dodge. Then, Xiaohua's black iron needle appeared. Of course, although Xiaohua's black iron needle was very strange, it couldn't escape Wu Hai's and Yan Qinglian's divine sense. Only Xiang Yang couldn't see it clearly under the suppression of the fireball talisman. Seeing Xiaohua's favorable start, Wu Hai and the others already understood. Even an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator like Xiang Yang could be trapped by Xiaohua. How could a 12th-stage qi refining cultivator be so lucky? Of course, this was on the premise that Xiaohua had enough fireball talismans. Seeing this, Wu Hai and the others were already very surprised, but they didn't expect what happened next would be even more unexpected. Xiang Yang, an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, actually couldn't catch up to Xiaohua, an early-stage qi refining cultivator. There was a difference of several stages between the two of them. In the end, Xiaohua gave up the chance to escape and turned around to attack Xiang Yang. They originally thought that Xiaohua had an even more unexpected trump card, but in the end, he was actually defeated by Xiang Yang's very ordinary great confinement technique. This was indeed unexpected. Xiang Yang was naturally also stunned, but he immediately used a flying technique to descend and cast a spell on Xiaohua's body to remove the great confinement technique. Ha ha ha, eldest senior brother, you're really powerful. I used all my methods and still couldn't defeat you. Xiaohua jumped in the air and laughed. Xiang Yang was also very carefree. He waved his arms and was about to speak when Wu Hai scolded from above, "What a joke, what cultivation level do you have? You actually dare to say you can defeat your eldest senior brother? If you really defeated him, how is that possible?" Zhuo Minghui also laughed. "I've only heard of middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators defeating late-stage foundation establishment cultivators with magic tools, but I've never heard of late-stage qi refining cultivators defeating early-stage foundation establishment cultivators. The difference between the two stages is really too great. Little junior brother is already very good." Yan Qinglian smiled and said, "If it was really a fight, little junior brother would have run away long ago. Even if Xiang Yang wanted to chase after him, he wouldn't be able to." Helplessly, he nodded slightly. He could see that Xiaohua's flight technique was truly a lot stronger than Xiang Yang's. Back then, when he heard that Xiaohua had escaped from the hands of 4 foundation establishment cultivators, he was admittedly astonished, but he felt that it was somewhat exaggerated, so he hadn't mentioned it in the past few years. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he had no choice but to believe it. In this world, there really were some unparalleled people. They really made ordinary people feel ashamed of their inferiority. "Master, this disciple only has this little bit of cultivation. I've let you see a joke." Xiaohua's face looked indifferent, and he said very calmly, "Let's head down first." Waving his hands helplessly, the crowd returned to their abodes. He helplessly looked at Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, you have indeed exceeded my expectations. Just like what your senior sister-in-law said, you did very well. It's just that your weakness is also very obvious. That is, your foundation is too weak. Because you haven't gone through a very systematic cultivation of spells like your eldest senior brother, you can't use some basic spells smoothly. For example, just now, even if you didn't have time to take out a yellow talisman, you could have used something like the Ice Seal technique to block the Great Confinement technique for a moment. Why didn't you take advantage of that time to run away?" Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple's basic spells were all snatched from others and comprehended by myself. How could they be better than eldest senior brothers? Xiaohua said sincerely. And, during this period of time, let your eldest senior brother teach you all of the basic magic spells that you know. The simpler it is, the more practical it is. Just look at your eldest senior brother's great confinement technique and you'll know. Helplessly looked at Xiang Yang. Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple will carefully guide little junior brother. Xiang Yang hurriedly said. Also, where did you get that earth attribute magic tool? It doesn't seem to be very handy. Helplessly said with a deep meaning. Hee, where else could I have gotten it from? Snatched it from a spirit husbandry sect disciple. Xiaohua didn't hide anything and gave a rough explanation. Poor child. Hearing that Xiaohua had gone through so much hardship just to obtain some third-level qi refining techniques, Zhuo Minghui's eyes immediately turned red. She said, I've always thought that rogue cultivators are despicable, harming people's lives and snatching their techniques. But now that I hear it, they had no choice. Yes, Master knows. Although this disciple was a rogue cultivator back then, I had always relied on my own efforts to obtain techniques. I would never dare to harm people's lives in the name of cultivation. These two spirit husbandry sect disciples were indeed despicable, wanting to take this disciple's life. That's why this disciple. Master knows, Master knows. Zhuo Minghui hurriedly said, 2 5th and 6th level qi refining cultivators bullying a 2nd level qi refining cultivator like you. Even if it means taking their lives, it's only right. Give the magic tool to Master. Helplessly said as he spread out his hands. What? Master, don't tell me you're on good terms with the spirit husbandry sect? Helplessly was shocked and very unwilling to hand it over. Hee, since when would your master be so biased? Zhuo Minghui smiled and said, your magic tool hasn't been reforged. The spirit husbandry sect disciples would know that it belongs to them. Wouldn't they cause trouble for you? Your master wants to take it to the Thunder Flashing Hall and ask the weapon refiners to reforge it for you. Ah. Was that true? That's great. Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out the white dust. He handed it over and then asked embarrassedly, Master, this disciple still has one more. Can I also? Helplessly said in annoyance, how many more do you have? Give them all to me. In Xiaohua's dimension, there were still a few magic tools used by Jinxie. It was a pity that he didn't dare to take them out. Xiaohua took them out with a smile and said, this disciple only has these 2 treasures. How could there be more? Helplessly took them and put them into her storage bag. She then said, you definitely haven't refined the magic tool that your master's wife gave you. With it, you have the means to attack. However, looking at your fight just now, your defense is still too weak. If you want to choose a magic tool, you have to choose one that can defend. Husband, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Zhuo Minghui said, Xiaohua's flying speed is extremely fast. This is his best defense. If he can't hit him, he can escape. Therefore, I think Xiaohua should make a fuss in this attack. The stronger the magic tool, the better. When Xiaohua heard this, it was exactly what he wanted. He nodded and said, Master's wife is right. Then, with a wave of his hand, he took out the magic spear and said with a smile, this disciple had a very interesting thing before. Just now, I saw that eldest senior brother's defense was very strong, so I didn't take it out. Magic tool. Helplessly scanned with her divine sense and said with a smile, you have a lot of good things on you. As she said this, she reached out to take it. Xiaohua hurriedly said, Master, you should be careful. This thing is very heavy. You think I don't know? Helplessly, she glared at him and used a bit of magic power on her arm. As a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, she naturally didn't care too much about the weight of this magic spear. However, after taking it, she was also surprised. You want to use this magic spear to break your senior brother's defense? Helplessly, she whispered. Yes, this disciple indeed has this idea. Xiaohua didn't hide it. When this disciple was a loose cultivator, I used this method to escape many times. Xiang Yang, don't move. Let Xiaohua try. Helplessly, she waved her hand and said. You old man, Xiaohua didn't use it just now. He knows this move won't work. Even if you want to teach him a lesson, you don't need to test it on Xiang Yang, right? Zhuo Minghui said with a smile. However, Xiang Yang was honest. He hurriedly stood up and said with a smile, it's fine. This disciple will stand here and not move. Xiaohua took the magic spear and walked in front of Xiang Yang with a smile, saying, eldest senior brother, don't move. This little brother will offend you. Xiang Yang waved his hand. Don't worry. This brother is a foundation establishment cultivator. I have magical powers that you can't imagine. Okay, be careful, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua also wasn't polite. He waved his hand, and the devil spear in his hand pierced towards Xiang Yang's waist. Shua, a light sound was heard. A faint brilliance flashed and blocked Xiaohua's spear. However, Xiang Yang couldn't block Xiaohua's incomparably huge force. His figure slightly staggered. Immediately after, a scene that helplessness, Xiang Yang, and the others didn't expect happened. They saw Xiaohua's right hand suddenly thrusting the magic spear continuously. That right hand seemed to be an illusion in everyone's eyes. Waves of huge force that Xiang Yang couldn't resist hit Xiang Yang's waist. Xiang Yang's body was almost sent flying. However, even so, Xiaohua's spear still didn't leave Xiang Yang's waist. Kacha, in just a few breaths of time, everyone heard a light sound. They saw Xiang Yang's body flicker with brilliance and then it was annihilated. Xiang Yang, this foundation establishment early-stage cultivator's defensive brilliance was actually destroyed by Xiaohua. Ah! Yan Qinglian was greatly alarmed. She almost stood up. Helplessness waved his hand, wanting to stop Xiaohua. As for Xiaohua himself, when the first spear pierced Xiang Yang, he already had a plan in his heart. Seeing the defensive brilliance break, he immediately stopped. He held Xiang Yang's hand and said, eldest senior brother, master didn't let you move, but he didn't say you couldn't replenish your magic power. If you keep getting beaten like this, it will break sooner or later. Xiang Yang's hand formed a seal, and the brilliance on his body flashed again. He said with a bitter smile, master just wanted to see how powerful your magic spear is. If I replenish my magic power, how can he see it? Besides, your magic spear is really powerful. If I didn't see it in advance, even if I replenished my magic power, I'm afraid it would be too late. What a pity. Helplessness said from the side, Xiaohua's magic spear is a good thing, but its weight is still limited. It can't break a foundation establishment cultivator's defense in the shortest time possible. If it was several times heavier, I'm afraid Xiang Yang wouldn't be able to withstand it. Master, look at what you're saying. If it were any heavier, disciple wouldn't be able to lift it. Xiaohua said with a smile. Hee, not bad, not bad. Your body's strength actually has a use. Let master think for you. Helplessly laughing, Xiaohua said, but right now, it's no problem to deal with ordinary qi refining cultivators. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He bowed and said, many thanks, master. Chapter 1589. Then, he stood up and said, let's go. Follow me to the Thunder Flash Hall. You can choose a magic tool, and I'll find a familiar blacksmith. Xiaohua didn't expect Helpless to be so anxious, so he was naturally happy. He bid farewell to Zhuo Minghui and the others, then followed Helpless to the Thunder Flash Hall. Along the way, Helpless seemed to be testing Xiaohua's flying technique. He was extremely fast and didn't hold back at all. Xiaohua didn't use the hibernating thunder escape, but he wasn't slow either. Although he couldn't catch up to Helpless, he still couldn't stop smiling. When they arrived at the Thunder Flash Hall, Helpless called the disciple in charge of odd jobs over and explained the situation. The disciple checked the records and said with a smile, so it's the disciple representing the Thunderquake Palace in the Feather Immortal Assembly. I'm really envious. Junior Marshal brother, please wait a moment. I'll inform the deacon to come over. The place where the magic tools are kept is very important. Without the deacon's personal guidance, no one can open the restriction. With that, the disciple sent out a summoning talisman. After a short while, the burly deacon came over. The deacon obviously knew Helpless, and after cupping his hands in greeting, he repeatedly congratulated him. However, in all these years, he had never received so many compliments. His mouth, which could not close, opened even wider. He said, "This poor Taoist is a good-for-nothing disciple." His face was full of pride. How was he a good-for-nothing disciple? He was a good-for-nothing disciple. However, it was no wonder that Helpless was so proud. Even Zhenxing and the disciple on duty were surprised. Thunderquake Palace had held the Feather Immortal Assembly countless times in the past. All the disciples who participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly were experts at the peak of the 12th layer. When had there ever been a disciple like Xiaohua who had just entered the 12th layer? Of course, there were occasionally disciples in the middle of the 12th layer who were qualified to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, but those disciples were all direct disciples of the Thunderquake sect. Their masters and grandmasters weren't people that Helpless could compare to. I's good-for-nothing disciple will be handed over to you, Senior Marshal Brother Zhen. If he doesn't listen to you, you can teach him a lesson. Just treat it as me taking action on behalf of I. Helpless held Xiaohua's hand and said to Zhenxing, "I have some matters to attend to elsewhere. I'll come back later. I hope Senior Marshal brother can take care of me." Zhenming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cupped his hands and said, "Junior brother, you can go ahead and do your own thing. The matter of choosing artifacts is the disciple's business. Even if I want to take care of them, I don't know how to do it." Xiaohua is still young. He simply doesn't know what kind of magic tool is suitable for him. If senior brother has the chance, I still have to remind him. When Zhenming heard this, he knew that if he didn't say anything, he wouldn't leave. He could only smile and say, "I understand. Junior Marshal brother, you can go now." Of course, these words were perfunctory, but they were also clear in their hearts. But when they heard it, their hearts were finally at ease. They cupped their hands and gave Xiaohua a few more instructions before leaving. After he helplessly left, Zhenming looked at Xiaohua. The trace of gentleness on his face gradually disappeared. He waved his hand and said, "Follow me." As he spoke, he walked into the inner hall without looking back. The disciple on duty just now stood there and did not follow him. Xiaohua was no stranger to Shualei Hall. He had been here several times, but he didn't go deep inside. He always stayed in the main hall. This time, as Zhenming slowly walked inside, he realized that Shualei Hall was really wide. After walking for the time it takes to burn an incense stick, he didn't know how many disciples bowed to him. He also didn't know how many corridors he passed before he finally stopped at the entrance of a side hall. Zhenming walked to the entrance of I. The door was tightly shut. It was the same as usual. There were no fluctuations of magic power. Xiaohua knew that this was the place where the artifacts were stored, so he tactfully stopped. Zhenming patted his storage bag and took out his identity token. His other hand formed a seal and hit the door of the side hall. Woo! With a loud roar, the palace door flashed and gradually changed shape. It actually let out the roar of a wild beast. When the roar stopped, the palace door also finished changing shape. It was a monster with a bloody mouth and closed eyes. What kind of restriction is this? Looking at the lifelike beast head in front of him, Xiaohua felt a bit strange. He had never heard of a formation that looked like a spirit beast. Seeing the beast head appear, Zhenming didn't dare to be careless. He threw the token in his hand into the monster's mouth. After a while, the monster slowly closed its mouth, but its closed eyes slowly opened. When it saw Zhenming, the monster seemed to be angry. Seeing this, Zhenming opened his mouth and sprayed a strand of his life origin into the monster's left eye. Then, Zhenming's right hand continuously formed seals and hit the monster's right eye. With Zhenming's seals, the monster's right eye gradually turned blue. As for its left eye, it had already turned red when the life origin was sprayed into it. When one of the monster's eyes was almost pure red and the other was almost pure blue, the monster that appeared at the entrance of the hall suddenly opened its mouth. Zhenming reached his hand into the monster's mouth, and with a flash of light, his identity token was taken out. Then, a red and blue light slowly extended from the monster's mouth. It was a narrow path of light. The red and blue path of light extended to Zhenming's feet and stopped moving. Zhenming pointed his finger and said to Xiaohua, "Take your identity token out of your storage bag. Leave your storage bag here. Go through this flight of stairs." The magic tools used by aura refining disciples are in the first room. The other rooms are used by Foundation Establishment disciples and above. There is a restriction in the middle. Your identity token can't pass through, so don't force your way through. Also, as a disciple participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly, you only have the right to choose one magic tool. Don't take more than that. Thank you, Deacon. Xiaohua cupped his hands and took his identity token out of his storage bag. He handed the bag to Zhenming and looked at the path of light under his feet. He lifted his leg and was about to step on it. Zhenming hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "Actually, the quality of a magic tool can't be judged by its appearance. Many inconspicuous magic tools might be very powerful. Also, there are some damaged magic tools in the East Room. Some of them are fragments of magic tools." Zhenming's words were vague. Xiaohua nodded slightly and stepped on the path of light. Sure enough, without Xiaohua taking a step, the path of light automatically shrank and brought Xiaohua into the mouth of the monster. When Xiaohua's figure entered the mouth of the monster, the same two-colored light sprinkled on Xiaohua's body like a drizzle. The identity token in Xiaohua's hand emitted a faint brilliance and absorbed the light. Behind the monster's mouth was the door of the hall that Xiaohua saw before. Xiaohua walked forward and pushed with his arms. The door opened silently. What entered Xiaohua's eyes was a rather large hall. There were many big and small bubbles floating in the hall. The bubbles were transparent, and each of them contained a magic tool and a jade slip. Ha! When Xiaohua saw this, he was overjoyed. He flew forward and waved his hand to find a bubble. The bubble flew in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua stretched his hand and easily reached into the bubble. When Xiaohua took out a magic tool that looked like a flute, the bubble didn't fly away. Instead, it stopped in front of Xiaohua's eyes. According to the jade slip, this flute was a rare magic tool that could attack with sound. When combined with music, it could make the enemy fall into an illusion. Combined with music? Xiaohua immediately thought of ancestor Zhen Qing from Zhenlei Palace. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid that only someone like ancestor Zhen Qing could use this magic tool." Soon after, Xiaohua put the flute and the jade slip into the bubble. The bubble slowly flew away again. After that, Xiaohua found a few more magic tools in the hall. Some were whips, some were plates, and there was also a very exquisite-looking armor. However, Xiaohua felt that they weren't ideal. He looked at the air in the hall again and saw so many bubbles. Xiaohua frowned. It was very troublesome to search one by one. Moreover, his divine sense couldn't penetrate the bubbles. He could only take the magic tools out of the bubbles to know their specific effects. It seemed that what Zhenming said about fate was true. When he wanted to search for it again, he saw a red and blue light path stretching out from the western wall. Oh! This path leads to the inside. Xiaohua looked at it with envy. He knew that it should be a magic tool used by a Foundation Establishment cultivator. It might even be a magic tool used by a golden core cultivator. And, let's go to the east room first. Since the deacon reminded me, maybe there's something good there. Even if it's a magic tool fragment, it might be more powerful than a magic tool. Xiaohua then turned his gaze to a small door on the east side of the hall. The inside of the door was very different from the hall. It was very ordinary, just like a room in an ordinary house where junk was stored. There was a rough table with all kinds of strange junk on it. Of course, it was junk. Xiaohua first saw something that looked like a flying sword, but the tip of the sword was long gone. Next to the flying sword, there seemed to be a rhombus-shaped array plate. However, in the middle of the array plate, there was a medium-sized hole. Hee, it's really a fragment. Xiaohua smiled and used his divine sense to scan the room. He felt that the magic power fluctuations on the junk in the room were very strong. However, the fluctuations didn't follow a pattern. He thought that the magic tool had been destroyed and the array inside was also damaged. Why isn't there a jade slip? Xiaohua used his divine sense to look at the magic tool fragments in the room and suddenly thought. No wonder no one wants these magic tool fragments. Xiaohua slapped his forehead and understood. Although these fragments are powerful, I don't know how to use them. What's the use? It's not even as good as a low-level magic tool. Fine, if others don't want it, what do I want? Xiaohua withdrew his divine sense and turned to leave. However, just as he turned around, in the corner of the room, a palm-sized square bucket with a broken corner attracted his gaze. This thing looks very strange. Xiaohua thought and walked to the front of the bucket. In fact, what attracted his gaze wasn't the bucket, but a pile of small round balls inside the bucket. Chapter 1590. The 9 small spheres were of different sizes. The big ones were like chicken eggs, and the small ones were like pearls. They were all oval in shape, and their surfaces were bumpy. When Xiaohua held the 9 small spheres in his hand, he discovered that there were small cracks on each sphere, and some of the cracks even went deep into the center of the sphere. When Xiaohua's divine sense swept across these spheres, a strange fluctuation of spiritual power came from them. This is a sword pill. Xiaohua suddenly remembered the sword cultivator from the Huan country that Wu Xian had just mentioned. Didn't that sword cultivator nurture a sword pill in his dantian, and from that sword pill, a flying sword was born? With a flying sword, he could block thousands of magic treasures and move unhindered between heaven and earth? For some reason, when Wu Xian had mentioned sword cultivators, Xiaohua had a kind of longing in his heart, a kind of longing to fly on a sword. It seemed that he liked flying swords from the bottom of his heart. And now, when he saw the sword pill and discovered that the spiritual power fluctuations in the 9 sword pills were connected to each other, it was obviously a complete set of sword pills. He couldn't help but feel like he had seen something he loved and had a desire to take it for himself. But, this sword pill. I don't know how to nurture it, nor do I know how to control a sword. Xiaohua thought and waved his hand regretfully, and the sword pill floating in the air fell into the small bucket. After putting down the sword pill, Xiaohua looked at the other fragments of magic treasures. Unfortunately, no matter what the shape of the fragments was or how strong the spiritual power fluctuations were, in Xiaohua's eyes, they were all ignored. Xiaohua sighed and unconsciously looked back at the sword pill in the small bucket. At this moment, Xiaohua kicked something. That thing was extremely heavy, and when Xiaohua kicked it, he actually staggered. Damn it! Xiaohua looked down and saw a pair of pitch-black hammers under the table. They were placed in a pile of junk. He scanned with his divine sense and found that there were no spiritual power fluctuations. Demonic tools. Xiaohua was overjoyed. Just as he was about to lower his head to look, his heart stirred. His eyes turned, and he straightened his body. He picked up a palm-sized disc from the table beside him and carefully examined it. After a while, Xiaohua leisurely walked around this table and went to the other tables. Only after Xiaohua had more or less finished looking through the fragments in the room did he return to the main hall. However, after looking at the sword pellet and looking at these magic tools again, they were almost all trash. He was not interested at all. Forget it, forget it. Xiaohua gritted his teeth, turned around, and walked to the front of the sword pellet. He extended his hand, picked up the small bucket, and turned around to leave the hall. Outside the hall, in front of an oval mirror, Zhenming was watching with interest. Next to him, Helplessness's face was ashen. He couldn't help but curse, this little brat is biting off more than he can chew. Pfft. When Zhenting heard that, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He wiped his hand and the mirror disappeared. He smiled and said, "Senior brother Helplessness, your disciple, has good taste." Humph. He helplessly flicked his sleeves and turned around to leave. Coincidentally, Xiaohua came out from the palace and said in surprise, "Master, you've returned so quickly. Come, take a look. Is this thing?" "There's no need to look. That thing is a sword pellet." "Damn it, why did I talk to you about sword cultivation just now? Let's not talk about how this thing needs to be nurtured from the first layer of aura refining first. Only then can a sword cultivator's heart and mind be connected and achieve the final unity of body and sword. Let's talk about nurturing. Where did you get the sword cultivation method to practice this sword pellet?" Helplessness stopped and said coldly, "Moreover, these 9 sword pellets of yours seem to be a set of sword formations. Even if you're an Aurus core cultivator now, I'm afraid you won't be able to control them freely, right? Hurry up, take advantage of the fact that you haven't left the hall and quickly go back and change them for me." "Ah! Master!" Xiaohua held the small bucket in his hand and was stunned on the spot. "Hee, senior brother Helplessness, your disciple has already left the treasury. You can't go back on the chosen magic tool." As Zhenming said that, he formed a seal with his hands. The dual-colored light under Xiaohua's feet disappeared, and the monster's head above the palace door also slowly disappeared, revealing an ordinary palace door. "Humph!" Helplessness coldly snorted. His body floated up and flew outside like lightning. Behind him, Zhenming chuckled and said, "Senior brother Helplessness, this thunder hall forbids flying." Seeing Helplessness fly away, Xiaohua's face had an indescribable expression. He walked in front of Zhenming and smiled apologetically, "Martial uncle, disciple, hasn't come down from the stairs yet?" Zhenming handed over the storage bag in his hand and said with a smile, "Didn't this old man say that everything depends on fate? Maybe you have fate with this set of sword pellets. But, disciple doesn't have a cultivation method." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Then this old man wants to help, but is unable to." Zhenming spread his hands and said, "Maybe in the future, you can go to Huan country and see if you can obtain their sword technique." "Ah, okay." Xiaohua helplessly took the storage bag and said, "Then disciple, can only take this set of sword pellets." As he said that, Xiaohua was about to put the small bucket into the storage bag. "Hee, you can take that sword pellet, but why take out this small bucket as well?" Zhenming pointed at the small bucket holding the sword pellet and said with a smile. "Oh. This small bucket." Xiaohua stared blankly. He always thought that this small bucket was together with the sword pellet. Thus, he grinned and said, "You actually took too much. Martial uncle, open the hall door again and disciple will return this small bucket." "Ha ha ha!" Zhenming laughed loudly. "You wish. How can the treasury let you enter as you wish?" Then Xiaohua scratched his head and smiled apologetically. "Then this junior will take the sword pellet. I'll have to trouble martial uncle to send this small bucket to the treasury." Forget it, forget it." Zhenming waved his hand. "You took a useless sword pellet, and your master blew his beard and glared at you. Who knows how he's cursing this old man in his heart. This small bucket can be considered a gift to you." "It can't be." Xiaohua was delighted, but then his face turned bitter. Of course, since this small bucket could be taken away by him, then, was there any need to say the value of this sword pellet? No wonder he had no choice but to leave in a huff. Xiaohua resolutely handed over the small bucket, yes, the bucket and the sword pellet, and said very righteously, "Martial uncle, how can this junior take advantage of the treasury? Why don't you take it back? Let's go." Zhenming ignored him and turned to leave. As he walked, he said, "This item has been in the treasury for thousands of years. No one has ever taken a good look at it. You have fate with them, so you should take it." Damn it. I thought this artifact fragment was something good. This was the only thought in Xiaohua's mind as he followed Zhenming out of the hall. Outside the hall, of course, Helpless had already disappeared. Xiaohua had no choice but to fly back to the Myriad Thunder Valley. As if he had already received the news, Xiang Yang also had a strange expression on his face as he greeted Xiaohua. When Xiaohua saw Xiang Yang, he asked in a low voice, "Where's Master?" He went back to his residence and didn't come out. Just now, he said that Master's wife told me to come out and pick you up. Xiang Yang also said in a low voice. It seems like Master is really angry. He said that he wants me to go to the Lightning Hall to take your 2 artifacts a month later. He doesn't want to see you anymore. No way. Xiaohua was unhappy. Let's go back to the residence first. Xiang Yang brought Xiaohua back to his residence. Yan Qinglian brought the spirit fruit over and looked at Xiaohua. She said seriously, "Little junior brother, this is your fault." Xiaohua's heart trembled. He bowed and said, "Senior sister, please teach me." "AI, didn't you see that Master has been reminding you? Our cultivation is about concentration. Don't be confused by the many spells and abilities. Cultivation is the most important thing. Little junior brother, have you never heard of the phrase, only one of the 3,000 paths of the Tao is enough?" Xiaohua shook his head. "I don't know. Qinglian, little junior brother is a wandering cultivator. In the past, he was afraid that he didn't have enough techniques and spells. How could he know so much?" Xiang Yang reminded. No wonder." Yan Qinglian said sympathetically. "This phrase means that there are 3,000 paths of the same Tao. For us, only one path is enough. Don't covet a second path." Xiaohua nodded. Little junior brother practiced 3 types of techniques when he was in the Qi refinement stage. Now, relying on the concealed fire physique, he directly rushed to the beginning of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement stage. It's already very rare, but the most important thing is still to build your foundation. If you can't build your foundation, everything else is useless. Yan Qinglian explained, "Master asked your eldest senior brother to guide you more because he wanted you to learn from his lesson. Focus on cultivation and don't be unfocused. The Feather Immortal Gathering this time is a good opportunity for you to exchange ideas. You can choose a suitable magic tool. On one hand, you can show your face at the Feather Immortal Gathering. On the other hand, it's beneficial for the control and growth of your spiritual sense. More importantly, it'll increase your chances of building your foundation. However, you just had to take a sword cultivator's sword pill. That thing is indeed very powerful, but our Thunder Control sect doesn't have the corresponding sword controlling technique. Aren't you missing a magic tool for no reason?" Xiang Yang continued, "That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you'll have something in your heart after taking this sword pill. In the future, you might come across some sword controlling technique and want to practice flying swords. Sword cultivators are naturally different from our Dao sect. If you divide your energy to practice flying swords, won't you delay your own cultivation?" This. Xiaohua faintly felt that these words might not be true, but it sounded like everything was taken into account. That's right, but he couldn't bear to throw away the sword pill. He could only murmur, "Martial Uncle Zhen from the treasure pavilion won't let me return it. Then I'll take it first." Yan Qinglian looked at Xiang Yang, and Xiang Yang could only nod. "Then take it first. But don't practice it." "Yes, I know." Xiaohua nodded. Then, for dozens of days, Xiaohua stayed in Xiang Yang's cave and practiced the basic magic of the Thunder Control sect with Xiang Yang. Their master had no choice but to not show up again. Chapter 1591. Imperial Thunder School's foundational spells were different from Feng Clan's foundational spells. Not only were there more types of spells, but the same spells were also much stronger. For example, the Thunder Palm was considered a high-level spell in Feng Clan's foundational spells, but in Imperial Thunder School's foundational spells, it could only be considered a middle-level spell. Moreover, in the hands of Imperial Thunder School's disciples, not only could they make the thunder bigger or smaller, the shape of the thunder wasn't as simple as a bar. Of course, the difficulty of Imperial Thunder School's foundational spells was also much higher than Feng Clan's foundational spells. Moreover, many of the spells were based on thunder-attributed heaven and earth spiritual energy. For example, the thunder sound transmission technique was much more difficult than the thunder sound transmission talisman. However, if you didn't have a deep understanding of thunder-attributed heaven and earth spiritual energy, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Because of this, Xiang Yang originally thought that Xiaohua would need a long time to practice Imperial Thunder School's foundational spells, but the truth made him flabbergasted. Xiaohua seemed to have a natural sensitivity towards spells. He could understand many spells with just a little bit of guidance. He could even comprehend more complex spells by analogy based on the foundational spells. Although Xiaohua only followed Xiang Yang for a month, Xiang Yang already felt that he had nothing to teach him. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't have more spells, but no matter how profound the spells were, Xiaohua's cultivation wasn't enough. No matter how low-leveled the spells were, Xiang Yang felt that he didn't need to teach them. Xiaohua could grasp them by himself. After all, when Xiaohua was a rogue cultivator, he practiced Feng Clan's foundational spells by himself. Therefore, when a month's time was up, Xiang Yang simply made a copy of the Myriad Thunder Valley's foundational spells Jade Slip and gave it to Xiaohua. He had Xiaohua return to the eastern ridge to practice. When he encountered something he couldn't comprehend, he would come back to the cave to teach. Then, he brought Xiaohua to Bright Thunder Hall again. On one side of the Bright Thunder Hall was a crimson-red mountain wall. On the mountain wall, there were many caves. The caves looked very ordinary, but every disciple who went in and out would have a faint glow around them. Clearly, there were restrictions placed on the caves as well. Xiang Yang brought Xiaohua to the front of the stone wall and stopped moving forward. Instead, he slapped his hand and took out a thunder sound transmission talisman. He activated his magic power and the thunder sound transmission talisman flew into one of the holes. Before long, an 8th layer aura refining boy walked out with a storage pouch in his hand. Looking around, he walked up to Xiang Yang and bowed respectfully. "Senior Martial Brother, are you Martial Uncle Helpless disciple?" "I am." Xiang Yang returned the greeting. "I have been ordered by my master to retrieve 2 items." The disciple didn't hand over the storage bag. He smiled and said, "Senior brother, what is the name of the thing you want?" "One is Zhi Chen, the other is Zhao Guan." "Hee, it's these 2," said the disciple with a smile. He then handed the interspatial pouch to the 2 of them. Xiang Yang took the pouch and passed it to Xiaohua without even looking at it. Xiaohua opened his storage pouch. Inside, there were 2 magic tools. One was in the shape of a sphere, and the other was a ring. "Your ring was extremely different from the mirror." Xiaohua took out the ring. Just as he was about to urge his magic power to test it out, he heard Xiang Yang say, "Little junior brother, don't be impatient." Soon after, he untied a small storage pouch from his waist and handed it over. He smiled and said, "Junior brother, please take care of this." The boy took the pouch and opened it. He nodded and said, "It's perfect." "Thank you, senior brother." He then reached out and took out a jade slip from his bosom. He handed it to Xiang Yang and said with a smile, "The spells of these 2 magic tools have been changed. The previous spells are all ineffective. In the future, senior brother, please use this new spell. Xiang Yang didn't find it strange. Under Xiao Hua's thoughtful gaze, he took the jade slip and cupped his hands. Thank you. Thank you, your master. You're welcome, you're welcome. The disciple bowed in return. He turned around and entered the cave. After the two of them left the stone wall, Xiao Hua whispered, eldest senior brother, did you give him spirit stones? Xiang Yang nodded and said, of course. Asking a tool refiner from Bright Thunder Hall to refine a magic tool naturally requires spirit stones. How many spirit stones? Xiao Hua whispered, I still have a lot of spirit stones here. They're all supreme grade spirit stones. How many can you have? Xiang Yang waved his hand and said, these are all given by master. Don't worry. All right, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said. Xiang Yang handed the jade slip over and said with a smile, this is a new spell. In the future, even if the Patriarch of Spirit Husbandry sect comes, he probably won't be able to recognize that this is their magic tool. Hee, very good. Xiao Hua took the jade slip and put it into his storage pouch without even looking at it. However, he was still thinking about something. There were some basic tool refinement techniques in his space, but he hadn't had the time to look at them. Now that he saw how magical tool refinement techniques were, he wanted to find some time to look at them. While they were talking, a group of disciples in bright clothes walked over while talking and laughing. Most of these disciples were in the early stage of foundation establishment. There were a few in the middle stage of foundation establishment and chi refinement. When Xiang Yang saw them, he frowned slightly and stopped walking, as if he was avoiding them. Xiao Hua didn't know why Xiang Yang was like this, but he also stood beside Xiang Yang. He only glanced at them before lowering his head to think about his own matters. Io, it's this guy. The crowd had obviously already walked past Xiao Hua and the others, and a slightly shrill voice called out. Xiao Hua felt very strange and couldn't help but raise his head to look. He saw a disciple who wasn't very tall and looked about the same age as Xiao Hua a few feet away from him. He had a fierce expression on his face and one of his hands was pointing at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was stunned and looked around. There was no one beside him other than Xiang Yang. Me? Xiao Hua was surprised. This disciple looked very unfamiliar. However, when Xiao Hua looked carefully, his face turned cold and his eyes narrowed slightly. He remembered that the disciple who was pointing at him was an opponent that Xiao Hua had encountered in the disciple selection of the Feather Immortal Assembly in the Heavenly Thunder Palace not long ago. However, Xiao Hua had encountered more than 200 opponents at that time, and he didn't have the heart to continue fighting, so he didn't remember clearly. If this disciple hadn't pointed at him, he definitely wouldn't have remembered. Thinking of this opponent who had been forced to death by him using a fireball talisman. Fourth senior brother, it's this guy. This guy defeated this little brother, and that's why I fell to the 21st place. If it weren't for him, this little brother would definitely have obtained the qualifications to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. That disciple's expression was somewhat angry, and he said to a Middle Foundation Establishment disciple, this time, this little brother lost the face of my Swallow Thunder Ridge. Even that guy Qian Diheng was able to participate, but this little brother fell behind. When Qian Diheng saw this little brother, he laughed at this little brother. This little brother couldn't find which disciple didn't give my Swallow Thunder Ridge face, so, this is actually a disciple of my Thunderous Thunder Palace? When the fourth senior brother heard this, his face turned cold. He looked past Xiang Yang and directly at Xiao Hua. The pressure of a Middle Foundation Establishment cultivator was instantly released from his body, and it pressed down on Xiao Hua like a mountain. This pressure was very strange. It was a pressure that was naturally formed after a cultivator entered the Foundation Establishment stage. As the cultivator's realm increased, the pressure would also increase. This pressure had nothing to do with dermic powers, it only depended on the realm. Therefore, although Xiao Hua's magic power was profound, he had no way of defending against this pressure. Seeing that the pressure was about to land on his body, Xiaohua already felt that the pressure was heavy, and his magic power was stagnating. But at this moment, Xiang Yang, who was beside Xiaohua, moved. Xiang Yang, who didn't want to cause any trouble, also released his spiritual pressure. In Xiaohua's perception, the release of the spiritual pressure of two foundation establishment cultivators was like two perilous waves crashing into each other. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was stirred up, giving rise to a small hurricane. Junior brother Xiang Yang. The fourth senior brother sneered, "Is this a disciple of your 10,000 Thunder Valley? How come I have never heard of him?" Xiang Yang's expression was indescribable, and he said in a deep voice, "Zhen Weisheng, whether my 10,000 Thunder Valley accepts disciples or not doesn't seem to have anything to do with Swallow Thunder Ridge, right? Whether you know or not, Xiaohua is still a disciple of my 10,000 Thunder Valley." Xiaohua. Hehe, not a bad name. Seeing that Xiang Yang released his pressure, Zhen Weisheng also took advantage of the situation to withdraw his pressure, and said coldly, "However, 10,000 Thunder Valley has always only produced cowards. Xiaohua, are you willing to fight with my Swallow Thunder Ridge disciple on the Thunder Arena?" Hearing this, Xiang Yang's expression changed greatly, and he took half a step forward, saying angrily, "What grudge does my 10,000 Thunder Valley have with your Swallow Thunder Ridge? You actually want to fight to the death on the Thunder Arena?" Ah! Hearing this, Xiaohua's expression also became slightly angry. Although he didn't know what the Thunder Arena was, it actually involved life and death. How could he not be angry? "Ha ha ha, I told you 10,000 Thunder Valley has always been cowards. Xiang Yang, I remember that when someone invited you to the Thunder Arena, you didn't show up. Today, I still haven't officially sent out an invitation. You immediately refused. With such cowardice, how can you achieve the great Tao?" Zhen Weisheng's words became more and more unpleasant, and even overbearing. "My junior brother Xiaohua's cultivation is only at the 12th layer of the qi refining realm. You, a middle foundation establishment senior, actually extended an invitation. Don't you feel ashamed?" Xiang Yang was unmoved, and snorted disdainfully. "If you agree, my Swallow Thunder Ridge will naturally have disciples of the same cultivation level to receive you. How can I bully the weak?" Seeing this, Xiaohua took a step forward, and berated, Shut up." Xiang Yang grabbed Xiaohua and scolded, "Elder brother is here. What right do you have to speak?" "Yes, disciple obeys eldest senior brother's order." Xiaohua lowered his head and said. Xiang Yang looked at Zhen Weisheng with a cold smile, and said confidently, "My junior brother obtained the qualification to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Even if he agrees, do you dare to go to the Thunder Arena?" Fourth senior brother. The disciple next to him was shocked and angry, and said, He actually snatched my qualification. I must take his life." "Shut up." Zhen Weisheng snorted coldly, and glared at the disciple. He waved his hand, and said, "Let's go." The surrounding people all fiercely glared at Xiaohua and Xiang Yang, and then hurriedly left with Zhen Weisheng. Xiaohua was left with a watery expression on his face. He narrowed his eyes as he watched their departing figures, and said in a low voice, "Where there are people, there will be fighting. Master's wife is right." Chapter 1592. As Xiang Yang walked out of Thunder Flash Hall, Xiaohua heard the whole story clearly. It turned out that the entire Imperial Thunder sect was not a peaceful and harmonious big family like Xiaohua imagined. Just as Xiang Yang had said before, not only were there rogue cultivators, cultivator families, and disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, but there were also grudges between these disciples of different identities. Therefore, in order to settle these grudges, Imperial Thunder sect had a special rule. That was, no one was allowed to fight outside the Thunder Arena, especially if it was life-threatening. As long as it was discovered, both sides would be severely punished. On the Thunder Arena, both sides' life and death were determined by the heavens. No matter if it was the 8 great thunder palaces or the sect master and elders, none of them would interfere. Of course, it was not easy to enter the thunder arena. Both sides had to agree and sign a life and death contract. The masters of both sides had to know and report to Heavenly Thunder Palace. Imperial Thunder Sect's action was naturally to minimize the internal friction between the disciples of Imperial Thunder Sect. But just as Zhuo Minghui said, where there were people, there would be fighting. The Thunder Arena of Imperial Thunder Sect was never idle. Every once in a while, there would be disciples of different cultivation levels who would lose their lives on it. As for Thunder Ridge, it was the same as Myriad Thunder Valley, a place in Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunder Mountain Range. However, this place was where Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunder Palace refined their weapons. In Imperial Thunder Sect, weapon refiners and alchemists were rare. Their status was higher than ordinary cultivators of the same cultivation level. Thunder Ridge was the main force of Thunder Palace's weapon refinement, so its status in Thunder Palace was much higher than Myriad Thunder Valley. Naturally, there were many disciples in Swallow Thunder Ridge. Although Zhenqikue's master, Zhenjie, was an early gold core stage cultivator, Zhenjie had many martial brothers. There were quite a few early and middle gold core stage cultivators. Not to mention Zhenjie's master and martial uncle, they were all close to nascent soul stage. Maybe one day they would successfully conceive a nascent soul and become a cultivator of Imperial Thunder Sect who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Thunder Meng Daoist. Because of this, Thunder Meng Daoist often turned a blind eye to Thunder Ridge and did not interfere too much. In addition, Lei Meng Daoist was not a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect, which was somewhat different from Swallow Thunder Ridge. Therefore, some of Lei Meng Daoist's traits had resulted in Swallow Thunder Ridge being arrogant and domineering. After listening to this, Xiaohua understood in his heart that this Zhenqikue should be the same as the Yan family's Yan Wei, conceited and arrogant. He couldn't bear to see others stronger than him. Moreover, he had snatched away his right to participate in the Feather Immortal Conference. So, he was afraid that this matter would not be settled peacefully. At worst, I won't go to the Thunder Arena. Xiang Yang forced a smile and said, in the past, a disciple of Swallow Thunder Ridge had a grudge with me and wanted to fight me to the death. I don't care about him at all. He can't do anything about it. Xiaohua was somewhat baffled. His eldest senior brother was an honest person who never caused trouble. How could he have offended other disciples? Thus, he smiled and said, so. Eldest senior brother has also spoiled other people's plans? Hee, of course. Xiang Yang looked into the distance. Who doesn't have exciting moments? Back then, when I married your senior sister-in-law into the Myriad Thunder Valley, I also made many people sad. Haha, Xiaohua clapped and said, that's how it should be. Xiang Yang's face became somewhat spirited. He comforted him and said, don't say that you participated in the selection of the Feather Immortal Conference because someone instructed you to do so. Even if you participated yourself and snatched away that guy's right, what reason would he have to ask you to go to the Thunder Arena? Besides, if it really doesn't work out, you just have to agree. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't speak, Xiang Yang added, if it still doesn't work out, you can find Grandmaster Lei Meng or the sect leader. Hee, don't worry, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, that guy was already scared by me. Just now, he was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. If I really let him go to the Thunder Arena, he will definitely be scared out of his wits. Eldest senior brother, don't worry about me. Then, Xiaohua bid farewell to Xiang Yang and flew back to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden under Xiang Yang's concerned gaze. After parting ways with Xiang Yang, Xiaohua was very careful. Along the way, not only did he release his divine sense, but he also released his Buddhist sense to the maximum. He was afraid that Swallow Thunder Ridge's disciples would ambush him on the way. Fortunately, although he did meet a few disciples along the way, they were all unrelated. After saluting each other, they left. As soon as he returned to the Eastern Ridge, Xiaohua immediately opened the magic formation. Only after the magic formation closed did he feel at ease. He knew very well that if Shinchikue wanted to make trouble for him, he wouldn't do it himself. Not to mention Zhen Weisheng, even the other Foundation establishment disciples of Swallow Thunder Ridge could make a move and kill him without anyone knowing. What he said to Xiang Yang before was not so much to comfort Xiang Yang, but to give himself courage from the bottom of his heart. Damn it, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have won a single match and lost to them all. Xiaohua sits on a chair in the Immortal's Cave, secretly regretting, but how would I know that other than that disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace whose name I don't know, Shinchikue, this guy, was also arranged by someone else. Besides, if I didn't participate in this selection, I wouldn't have the qualifications to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. How would I have obtained so many benefits? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and patted his hand. He took out the small bucket and the set of 9 sword pills from his storage pouch. With a wave of his hand, the 9 sword pills floated in front of his eyes. The more he looked at them, the more delighted he became. If I can obtain the cultivation method of the sword pills, I can also use my sword to move unhindered in the world. Wouldn't that be great? Xiaohua thought. He didn't seem to make any movements, but a pair of huge black hammers suddenly appeared under his feet. Xiaohua stood up and kicked the hammers with his feet. The hammers didn't move in the slightest. Then, he bent down and used his hand to pick up the hammers. He tested their weight and said with a smile, "These hammers are really not ordinary heavy. If they were a bit heavier, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy to send them into the space. My actions will be discovered by Martial Uncle Zhen Ming." Soon after, he used 70% of his strength with one arm. With a whoosh, the devil hammer of unknown material was actually lifted up by him. Unfortunately, just as he lifted it halfway, Xiaohua let out a cry of surprise, "Ouch!" Immediately after, Xiaohua actually used all of his strength to lift the devil hammer above his head. Ha ha ha! Xiaohua put down the devil hammer. He was extremely happy and said to himself, "I have to use all of my strength to hold it. If I use it to smash someone, what would be the effect? I'm afraid it would be even more powerful than the tip of the devil spear. With this sword pill and this devil hammer, I should participate in this selection." Xiaohua waved his hand and sent the devil hammer and the sword pill into the space. He thought to himself, "I am a loose cultivator. What kind of situation have I not seen? You're just a second-generation ancestor of Swallow Thunder Ridge. Use whatever methods you have. If I don't kill you, I'm not surnamed Xiao." Soon after, Xiaohua's gaze landed on the small bucket. He seemed to have forgotten that his surname wasn't Xiao in the first place. That small bucket didn't hold the sword pill and looked even more tattered. Apart from a missing corner, there was a small hole at the bottom of the bucket. It couldn't even hold water. Xiaohua waved his hand and the small bucket flew into the air. It flipped left and right up and down. Xiaohua released his divine sense and discovered that there were faint fluctuations of spiritual power on this small bucket. However, it was extremely weak. If this small bucket was very light, Xiaohua would almost think it was a devil tool. Which magic treasure's fragment is this? Xiaohua thought and tried several magic treasure refining methods that he knew. Unfortunately, when he hit it with his spells, that small bucket didn't have any reaction. It really is a magic treasure. So arrogant. Xiaohua mocked himself. He waved his hand and was just about to put it into the space when he suddenly thought of something. He thought to himself, Luchongqi's black iron needle refining method mentioned the use of blood. This method is a type of blood sacrifice for magic treasures. Should I try it? But immediately after, Xiaohua hesitated again. Master said that although the blood sacrifice can refine magic weapons, that's only the method of recognizing a master after the magic weapon has been refined. It's only the final step. The requirement for the user's cultivation is quite high. Right now, I'm only at the chi refinement stage. How can I dare to use it? Although this small bucket is a magic treasure fragment, I'm afraid it can also suck my magic power dry. Thinking, Xiaohua dispelled this idea. He waved his hand and put the small bucket into the space. But faintly, Xiaohua felt that he had missed something. He frowned and thought for a long time. When he came to the pill room and cleaned up the soul-gathering pill, he warmed the pill furnace again. He looked at the three-legged vermilion bird and phoenix pattern furnace on the Samadhi true fire. His eyes suddenly lit up and he slapped his forehead. I was stupid. It's true that the small bucket can't be refined, but what about the sword pill? The sword pill is nurtured in the Dantian by sword cultivators since they were young. How can a sword cultivator's cultivation level be high? Moreover, if the sword pill doesn't recognize its master, how can it be put into the Dantian? Thinking about it made Xiaohua's heart warm, but reason stopped him. This is only my own guess. If it's not like this, wouldn't the sword pill be destroyed? Moreover, if it affects my cultivation, the losses outweigh the gains. Forget it, forget it. I'd better concentrate on refining pills. Xiaohua calmed his mind and concentrated on refining pills, putting the matter of the sword pill aside. Time passed extremely quickly. 10 months passed in the blink of an eye as Xiaohua refined pills, consumed pills, refined pills and familiarized himself with magic tools. During this time, no one came to the eastern mountain range to cause trouble. There were also no messages or disturbances from the myriad Thunder Valley. Xiaohua's cultivation level also steadily increased under the cultivation of the soul-gathering pill. Although he didn't reach the middle stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm, he still consolidated the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm. Everything developed according to Xiaohua's progress as an outstanding disciple. Chapter 1593. The fire crows flew towards the boulder and entered it. After a while, Xiaohua pointed his finger and the fire crow net flew back into his hand. Looking again, the boulder had already turned into ashes. Wonderful. Xiaohua clapped his hands and smiled. I had an idea and refined the Samadhi true fire into the fire crow net. The power of the fire crows increased by 50%. Then, with a wave of his hand, he took out several top-quality fire attribute spirit stones. He grabbed a few already dim spirit stones from the fire net and replaced them. He said with some heartache, unfortunately, the power increased, but the consumption of spirit stones is also obvious. If I didn't have a lot of fire attribute spirit stones here, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to use it. At this moment, the token in Xiaohua's bosom moved. Xiaohua took out the token and pointed his finger. The array opened and a red message talisman flew into Xiaohua's hand. "Io, Master is here." Xiaohua was shocked. He quickly extinguished the earth fire and put the pill furnace into his space. Looking around, there was nothing strange, he quickly flew out of the array. Sure enough, outside the array, not only Wu Qi, even Zhuo Minghui, Xiang Yang, and Yan Qinglian were standing in the air with a smile. And only Wu Qi's face was as calm as water, no expression could be seen. Master's wife." Xiaohua greeted in surprise. "He, Xiaohua, I haven't seen you for a few days and your cultivation has indeed increased." Yan Qinglian helped Xiaohua up and said with a smile. Seeing Xiaohua's cultivation progress, Wu Qi's expression also eased. He snorted and said, "What is this? Only foundation building is true progress." Eldest senior brother, senior sister. Xiaohua greeted Xiang Yang and the others. "Let's go, take master in to see." Wu Qi waited for Xiaohua to finish greeting and said indifferently. "Yes, master's wife, please." Xiaohua opened the array and invited the four to enter. Wu Qi looked around and shook his head. Aside from the abundant fire attribute spirit energy here, the rest of the world's spirit energy is lacking. It seems like a good place for disciples with fire attribute physiques to cultivate, but this fire attribute spirit energy feels extremely violent and difficult to refine into true essence. Even if you forcibly refine it, the true essence will inevitably be difficult to control. It's not good for stabilizing the realm and strengthening the foundation. This is not a place for you to cultivate after you build your foundation. Xiaohua smiled wryly. Alright, Master understands. Disciple naturally won't stay here for long. Later, when I build my foundation, I'll find a place next to Master's Immortal's Cave to set up a residence so that I can often receive Master's teachings. Helpless, he unhappily rolled his eyes at Xiaohua. You just don't make your master angry. No. Xiaohua didn't expect that helplessness would actually say this, and promptly smiled apologetically. Disciple is still waiting for master to give pointers to disciple to step into the late stage of foundation establishment. Bullshit. He scolded helplessly. Xiaohua was stunned. He scratched his head, not knowing what he did wrong. Helplessness looked at Xiang Yang and said, Xiang Yang's son is a spirit-severing cultivator. How can you only reach the late stage of foundation establishment? You're at least a tribulation-transcending cultivator. Xiang Yang and Yan Qinglian blushed. Zhuo Minghui covered her mouth and scolded, You old bastard, you guessed that he's in the late stage of the foundation building realm and you want your disciple to go through the tribulation, but as soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly felt that it was inappropriate. Wasn't he insinuating that Xiang Yang? He promptly turned his head and said, Qinglian, master's wife wasn't talking about you. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh until he bent over. Helplessness also laughed loudly when he saw Xiaohua laughing. His previous seriousness had long disappeared. Only Zhuo Minghui punched helplessness a few times with her fists, and her face was bright red again. Master, what business do you have here? Xiaohua and the others finished laughing and asked respectfully. Helplessness was happy and said, What business could there be? You're one of the 2 disciples of my Thunder Shocking Palace participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly. I've come to invite you. Xiaohua was stunned, so fast. Of course, he had been concentrating on alchemy and cultivation. He felt that only a few days had passed, but counting with his fingers, several months had already passed. Cultivation knows no time. Xiaohua sighed with emotion again. Are you ready? Helplessness saw that Xiaohua was in a daze and was unhappy in his heart, so he urged. Disciple is already ready. Xiaohua promptly nodded. Is that so? Why didn't I see you go to Thunder Bright Hall to exchange for yellow talismans? I also didn't see you go to receive the offerings. Helplessness asked back. Oh, of course. Xiaohua slapped his forehead when he heard this. He vaguely heard Xiang Yang mention that there was a place to exchange for yellow talismans and spirit stones in the Thunder Shocking Palace. If the disciples of Thunder Shocking Palace needed them, they could exchange for them with their own offerings. As for his own offerings, to be honest, he really didn't want to waste a day for those spirit stones and pills. Master's wife gave me some pills last time, and disciple also exchanged for some pills last time, so I didn't go to receive this year's offerings. Moreover, disciple feels that it's delaying cultivation, so I can just receive it once a year, right? Xiaohua promptly said. I know you have some in stock, but you should also prepare some yellow talismans and the like. They'll be useful in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Helplessness said unhappily. Yes, disciple understands. I'll exchange for them when I go to the Thunder Shocking Palace. Xiaohua's head was covered in sweat as he hurriedly said. When you go, everything will be too late. Helplessness waved his hand and said, Your eldest senior brother has already prepared them for you. Hee, thank you for your trouble, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua's heart was warm as he took the storage pouch that Xiang Yang handed over. He opened it and took a look. There were some spirit stones, some pills, and a pile of yellow talismans. Among them, most of them were high-grade fireball talismans. At the 12th level of Qi refining, one has divine sense. However, divine sense has just been born and is still very weak. It can't be used for long periods of time. These yellow talismans are still very useful in the competition. Xiang Yang explained, I've also conveniently received your offerings. You don't have to run anymore. Eldest senior brother. Thank you. Xiaohua looked at Xiang Yang and saw that there were a lot more spirit stones and pills in the storage pouch. He knew that the yellow talismans were all exchanged by Xiang Yang himself. He felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Really? Xiang Yang wanted to be his eldest senior brother more than Gong Mingwei. He even felt that he was his nephew. We have a lot of offerings, there's no need for them. Xiang Yang waved his hand. Many of them are from Master and Master's wife. You don't have to thank me. Zhuo Minghui smiled and said, You silly child. You are all disciples of Myriad Thunder Valley. It's normal for you to be intimate with each other. There's no need to thank me. Yes. Disciple understands. Xiaohua smiled and turned to ask Xiang Yang, what does eldest senior brother need? Me? Xiang Yang was stunned and shook his head. I don't need anything. I only hope that youngest junior brother can build his foundation as soon as possible and bring glory to my Myriad Thunder Valley. Xiaohua said with a bitter face, eldest senior brother, although master is next to me, you don't have to remind me. Can't you also give me a chance? Xiang Yang quickly waved his hand and said, if youngest junior brother has the heart, you should ask master. He's about to condense his core. I'm afraid he needs some things. Congratulations, master. Xiaohua beamed with joy and cupped his hands. What can this disciple do for master? I want dry distance pills. Do you have any? Xiang Yang helplessly glared at Xiaohua and said, you should worry more about yourself. At this time, Xiaohua obviously knew what dry distance pills were. Dry distance pills were medicinal pills that foundation building cultivators took when they condensed their core. They were exactly the same as foundation building pills for aura refining cultivators. Xiaohua didn't have such things. He could only smile apologetically and said, Master, you're asking for too much. Don't mind your master. Zhuo Minghui said with a smile as if she was protecting her nephew. When he condenses his core, the school will naturally give him dry distance pills. I'm just afraid that he won't be able to condense his core, so there's no reason to ask the school for them. I'll help you condense your core tomorrow. Xiang Yang helplessly said. Zhuo Minghui also ignored him. She glanced at Xiang Yang and said in a low voice, on the contrary, your eldest senior brother, if you have the chance, you can find. However, without waiting for Zhuo Minghui to say anything, Xiang Yang immediately interrupted, thank you for worrying about this disciple, but, youngest junior brother is only an aura refining disciple. How can he find that thing? It's better not to tell youngest junior brother. There's no reason for him to worry about it. Zhuo Minghui smiled bitterly and didn't say anything else. It seemed that that thing was really hard to find. Even if they were late-stage foundation building cultivators, they didn't have any certainty of finding it. Just when Xiaohua's curiosity was piqued, Yan Qinglian considerately said from the side, Husband, I know you don't want to burden youngest junior brother. But, don't forget, youngest junior brother used to be a loose cultivator. In my country of Xi's cultivation world, he wandered for more than 20 years and cultivated to the 10th level of aura refining with his own ability. If you tell him about this, maybe youngest junior brother will have a way. Yan Qinglian's meaning was the same as Zhen Ye's, but Xiaohua was very happy when he heard it. He also smiled and said, eldest senior brother, you don't need to be polite with younger brother. Younger brother's luck has always been very good. If eldest senior brother tells younger brother might be able to take it out and give it to you right now. How could Xiang Yang be willing to tell? He repeatedly waved his hand. Forget it. Who knows how many disciples in our Imperial Thunder sect who can't advance to the next level have searched all the major trading markets without any results. How can you, an aura refining disciple, find it? It's useless to tell you. Useless? Why don't you tell me? Xiao Hua's heart was moved. He said with a smile, younger brother only heard that embryonic breathing pills are useful for aura refining disciples to break through bottlenecks. I still don't know what medicinal pills foundation building cultivators use to break through. If eldest senior brother wants embryonic breathing pills, younger brother has them here. What? Xiao Hua. You have embryonic breathing pills? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Could it be, eldest senior brother needs embryonic breathing pills? Xiao Hua was stunned, but when he looked at Xiang Yang, there wasn't any joy on his face. Instead, there was joy on Xiao Hua's face. Yes, master. Disciple has embryonic breathing pills, and I was preparing to take them myself. Xiao Hua pretended to pat his storage bag and took out a bottle of embryonic breathing pills. He said, disciple spent a lot of effort to find 3 pills. Xiao Hua didn't wait for Xiao Hua to finish speaking. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottle fell into Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua opened the bottle and took a sniff. He said with a smile, sure enough, it's embryonic breathing pills. Master is taking them away. As he said that, he didn't wait for Xiao Hua to agree. He pointed his finger, and an embryonic breathing pill flew out of the jade bottle. He then threw the jade bottle back to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was already in the 12th layer of the aura refining realm, so he naturally didn't need embryonic breathing pills. After he took the bottle, he said with a smile, Master, is 1 pill okay? If not, take a few more. At this moment, Xiao Hua took the embryonic breathing pills and rolled his eyes at Xiao Hua. If 1 pill can break through a bottleneck, then 1 pill will naturally be okay. More pills will be useless. If 1 pill can't, then more pills will be a waste. However, Xiao Hua, master. I won't tell you now. When you come back from the Feather Immortal Assembly, there will be benefits for you. Xiao Hua turned his head and asked Xiang Yang, eldest martial brother, you don't need this, right? Xiang Yang shook his head. However, when he saw that Xiao Hua actually had such a rare embryonic breathing pill, he seemed to have something to say, but he swallowed the words back down. Looking at this eldest martial brother of his who was always thinking for other people and was also somewhat hesitant, Xiao Hua was also helpless. He put the jade bottle away. At the side, Yan Qinglian was somewhat anxious, but Xiang Yang slightly shook his head at her. Yan Qinglian could only bite her lips and hold back from saying anything. Xue Minghui saw everything. She helplessly and happily put away the embryonic breathing pills. She could only say, Xiao Hua, actually, what your eldest martial brother needs is about the same as embryonic breathing pills. It's one of the main ingredients for refining embryonic breathing pills. What? Xiao Hua was stunned. The expression on his face was somewhat frozen. He said inwardly, it can't be so coincidental, right? Sure enough, he heard Xue Minghui continue, qi condensation cultivators use medicinal pills to break through bottlenecks. Foundation establishment cultivators can also use them to break through bottlenecks. However, that medicinal pill isn't called embryonic breathing pills, but embryonic reflection pills. The refining method for embryonic reflection pills has already been lost. Then, what eldest martial brother is using, could it be, the mother-child spirit fruit? Xiao Hua asked somewhat stutteringly. Yes, it's the mother-child spirit fruit. At the side, Yan Qinglian really couldn't help but say, however, the mother-child spirit fruit and the one used for embryonic breathing pills are different in age. It won't be effective unless it's several hundred years old. Alas, several years ago, I heard that a several hundred-year-old mother-child spirit fruit appeared in an auction in Yenyuan City. Because the disciples of Splendid Sect, Qiqiao Sect, and Xuanyan School weren't prepared enough, they didn't succeed. Many disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect went to Yenyuan City to try their luck. In the end, you also know that junior martial brother Qing Hua was one of them. He didn't find the mother-child spirit fruit, but instead encountered other things. Hearing this, Xiaohua's expression became even more brilliant. However, he still had some hesitation in his heart. That mother-child spirit fruit had been in his space for so long. What year was it now? Even he himself didn't know. In short, it was definitely much older than the one he exchanged for the cultivation method that year. If he suddenly took it out, many thanks for mistress's concern. Xiang Yang's expression was extremely calm. He bowed and said, this disciple has already cultivated to foundation establishment. Even if my cultivation can't advance even half a step, having master and mistress's concern is already enough. This kind of thing can't be asked for, so don't let junior martial brother worry. Ha ha ha. Can't be asked for. Hearing this, Xiaohua laughed loudly. In his heart, he seemed to have thought it through a bit. Although family love couldn't be casually tested, if one put family love to the back of one's mind because of misgivings, then, was it still family love? Chapter 1594. Seeing Xiaohua laugh, everyone was slightly stunned. Xiaohua took the storage bag from his waist and handed it to Xiang Yang. Eldest senior brother, take a look. What's inside? Xiang Yang's heart skipped a beat, and his tone stuttered. No, Xiaohua threw the storage bag to Xiang Yang. Didn't eldest senior brother say that it can only be found by chance? Now that you've encountered it, it's eldest senior brother's opportunity. Ah. Xiang Yang didn't speak. Yan Qinglian flew over and snatched the storage bag from Xiang Yang's hands. When she opened it, she couldn't help but exclaim. It's really, the mother-child spirit fruit. Really? Helplessly, he also jumped up. With a wave of his hand, that storage bag was taken over by him again. He stuck his head out to look at the things inside and laughed. Ha ha ha. Xiang Yang, you're lucky. Xiaohua, there's nothing good in here, only this mother-child spirit fruit, eh? Xiaohua, why didn't you put the mother-child spirit fruit in the jade box? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Master, disciple is poor. I couldn't find any jade box, so I just casually left it there. You poor pedantic. Helplessly scolding, he slapped his hand and took out a jade box from the storage bag. He handed it to Xiang Yang, then pointed at the storage bag. That mother-child spirit fruit flew out of the storage bag and floated in the air. This mother-child spirit fruit. Zhuo Minghui, who hadn't spoken all this time, opened her mouth in shock when she saw the mother-child spirit fruit floating in the air. Her face was filled with disbelief. Of course, the mother-child spirit fruit in the air was still the same, but it was covered in golden runes. Those runes were denser and more lifelike than the last time Xiaohua saw them. This mother-child spirit fruit is probably several thousand years old. Yan Qinglian also woke up at this time and muttered. It can't be. Xiaohua also turned, pale with fright, and said. Disciple thinks that this thing is several hundred years old. What do you know? Helplessly, he continued. How can several hundred years old runes be so dense? Disciple only knows that this thing is a mother-child spirit fruit. Last time, that person said it was several hundred years old, disciple thought that this was also several hundred years old. Hua said embarrassedly. You have another one. Xiang Yang was stunned. That's right, Xiaohua said disapprovingly. Little brother's mother's spirit fruit was exchanged for a heavenly laws embodiment technique in Yenyuan City? Otherwise, where did little brother get this cultivation method from? You. Xiang Yang was speechless. Others couldn't find the mother-child spirit fruit in their entire lives, but this guy had taken out two in one go. Moreover, one was several hundred years old, and the other was several thousand years old. But, if Xiangyang knew that as soon as Xiaohua's mother-child spirit fruit was picked, the other mother-child spirit fruit in his space would immediately ripen and be ready to be picked at any time, what would he think? Heh, disciple, do you have 1,000-year-old Ling1 grass? He chuckled helplessly. Master, this disciple's storage pouch is with you. Do you think this disciple still has more? Xiaohua innocently replied. Helplessly shaking his hand, he threw the storage bag to Xiaohua and said, Your storage bag is so tattered, where would you find the Ling Yi grass? Xiaohua reached out to catch it and tied it to his waist. He smiled apologetically and said, Besides, this disciple doesn't even know what a Ling1 grass is. How could I have it? Helplessly rolling his eyes, he threw a jade slip to Xiaohua and said, You brat, you're lucky. Help Master take a look. If you can find it, Master will give you benefits. Xiaohua took the jade slip and threw it into the storage bag without even looking. Master, don't count on this disciple. This mother-child spirit fruit is also a coincidence. I didn't count on you in the first place. I just wanted you to be careful. Helplessly looking at Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian who were still somewhat absent-minded, he berated, Enough, it's like you haven't seen anything good. Quickly put this thing away properly. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiangyang put the mother-child spirit fruit into the jade box in a fluster and carefully put it away in the storage bag. The mother-child spirit fruit is not comparable to the embryonic breathing pill. Who knows how many Foundation establishment disciples in the Imperial Thunder sect dream of it. And this mother-child spirit fruit is only enough for you alone. You must not let this slip. Helplessly warned. This disciple understands, this disciple understands. Xiangyang nodded repeatedly. Good, do you have the sect's secret technique? I have it long ago. Go back and enter seclusion right now. Helplessly, he instructed, perhaps when Xiaohua returns, you can also exit seclusion. However, even if you exit seclusion, you absolutely cannot speak of it. Yes. This disciple understands. Xiangyang nodded, but looking at Xiaohua, he said, However, how can this disciple not see little junior brother off this time? Bullshit, it's not like he's not coming back. What's there to see him off for? Helplessly glaring at him, he said, It's not easy for you to have such an opportunity. Why don't you hurry up and grasp it? If someone steals this thing, you won't even have time to regret it. Eldest senior brother, hurry up and go back. Xiaohua also advised, This is the only thing I have. In the future, I'm afraid it'll be hard to come across it again. When I return, I'll see the glory of middle stage Foundation establishment eldest senior brother. And, little junior brother, thank you very much. Xiangyang patted Xiaohua's shoulder and laughed. Although Xiangyang didn't say much, just the word, thank you, made Xiaohua feel the sincerity in his heart. Thinking about the things Xiangyang had done for him in the past few years, Xiaohua's heart also felt a lot better. Little junior brother, I have to go back and protect your eldest senior brother, so I won't see you off. I hope you can show your talent at the Feather Immortal Assembly and win glory for our Imperial Thunder sect and our myriad Thunder Valley. Yan Qinglian said sincerely. Although Xiaohua didn't plan to show his talent at the Feather Immortal Assembly, he was too embarrassed to say it in front of helplessness, so he could only smile and say, Junior brother will do his best. Then, Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian said goodbye and rushed back to the myriad Thunder Valley to enter seclusion. Xiaohua also followed helplessness and Zhuo Minghui out of the Eastern Ridges spell formation. Before leaving the spell formation, Xiaohua still followed helplessness's instructions and picked some blazed dawn grass, and had helplessness bring it to the Thunderous Palace. As for the Eastern Ridge spell formation's command tablet, helplessness temporarily held it and would return it to Xiaohua when he returned. After flying with helplessness for a while, Xiaohua finally understood that their destination was the Heavenly Thunder Palace. He naturally didn't have the chance to go to the Thunderous Palace to exchange for any yellow talismans or medicinal pills. If Xiang Yang hadn't helped him exchange some in advance, he really would have gone on the journey empty-handed. The Heavenly Thunder Palace was the same as usual. There wasn't the slightest bit of celebration, and it wasn't even as lively as the day of the disciple selection. Only when Xiaohua walked into the Spring Thunder Palace did he see a trace of liveliness. He wasn't the latest to arrive, but he definitely wasn't the first either. At this moment, the Spring Thunder Palace was already occupied by about 10 12th layer Qi refining disciples. There were also Foundation establishment cultivators next to these disciples. Looking at the way they were giving pointers, they should be their masters. Needless to say, Xiaohua met all these disciples. The female disciple who expelled him from the illusory realm as soon as they met was also standing there, and a similarly cold and elegant late-stage Foundation establishment female cultivator was whispering something to her. Xiaohua followed helplessness in, and naturally attracted the attention of others. Every disciple revealed a trace of surprise when they saw Xiaohua, because Xiaohua's flying technique left a deep impression on these people. It was something they couldn't catch up to no matter what. At the same time, after the initial surprise, a trace of disdain appeared on their faces. After all, passing by running away was really shameful. Xiaohua was too lazy to pay attention to them. His gaze swept past them, and he followed helplessness and Zhuo Minghui to a corner of the main hall and stood there steadily. However, before he could stand properly, another 3 people quickly walked into the Spring Thunder Palace. The one in the lead was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator with grizzled hair, a short and fat figure, and 2 triangular eyes faintly flashing with a trace of light. Behind him were 2 12th layer Qi refining disciples. One was at the early stage, and the other was at the peak of the late stage. Xiaohua recognized the peak late stage Qi refining disciple. It was Wang Yunxiao, who entered the Imperial Thunder sect at the same time as him. And it seems that the Foundation establishment senior in front should be Zhenyu. He was the one who snatched Wang Yunxiao away first. Xiaohua thought in his heart. He stole a glance at helplessness, and sure enough, helplessness's expression became somewhat unsightly. When Zhenyu entered the Spring Thunder Palace, his eyes flashed. He had already seen helplessness, so he didn't go anywhere and directly walked towards helplessness. Is there going to be a good show to watch? Xiaohua muttered in his heart and slightly lowered his head. Junior Martial Brother Helplessness, Junior Martial Sister Zhua. Zhenyu cupped his hands and saluted from afar. Helplessness also had no choice, so he could only return the salute and say, "Greetings, Senior Martial Brother Zhenyu." Zhuo Minghui at the side also saluted and called him Senior Martial Brother. After the 3 of them saluted, Zhenyu waved his hand and said to Wang Yunxiao, "Yunxiao, come and greet your martial uncle Helplessness." Martial uncle Helplessness was the person I told you about earlier. When you were participating in the selection, he was the one who took a fancy to you first. It's a pity that he had an important matter to attend to that day and couldn't come. That's why I was able to take advantage of you and accept you as my disciple. Disciple Wang Yunxiao greets Martial Uncle Helplessness. Many thanks for Martial Uncle's good intentions that day. Wang Yunxiao was very courteous and very respectfully bowed to salute. Get up, I don't have the fortune to accept you as my disciple. It's really too convenient for your master. Helplessness said indifferently. Junior Martial Brother, look at what you're saying. It seems like you're still blaming me. Zhenyu said with a smile, no matter if it's you or I, aren't we both disciples of the Thunderous Palace? Think about it, if I didn't accept Yunxiao into the Thunderous Palace and someone else took him first, wouldn't it be too convenient for the other Thunderous Palaces? Today. Isn't Yunxiao representing the other Thunderous Palaces to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly? Moreover, isn't this disciple of yours not bad? Isn't he also representing my Thunderous Palace to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly? Look at this disciple of mine. He doesn't even dare to sign up for the selection. He's too far away from your disciple. Come, Yuqian, greet your martial uncle Helplessness and, this senior martial brother. It's indeed Jin Yuqian. Xiaohua thought. At this time, he also waved his hand helplessly and said, Xiaohua, come and greet your martial uncle Zhenyu, senior martial brother Yun Xiao and junior martial brother Yu Qian. Yes, Xiaohua and Jin Yuqian both answered. They stepped forward and greeted their master first, then greeted each other. Chapter 1595. After Xiaohua and Jin Yuqian greeted each other, Zhenyu waved his hand and said, Yuqian, don't be too affectionate. Xiaohua was the number 1 in the disciple selection that year. Furthermore, he participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly with the cultivation of early-stage level 12 Qi refining. He is indeed a role model for you to follow. Master Disciple has senior brother Yun Xiao as a role model. Why would a disciple who only knows how to run for his life be a role model? Could it be that you also want disciple to piss his pants in terror and run away the moment he sees an enemy? Jin Yuqian couldn't help but refute his master. Furthermore, I heard senior brother say that he didn't use his full strength that day. Otherwise, Xiaohua's number 1 position would be unknown. When these words came out, not only was Xiaohua greatly shocked, even Xiaohua himself opened his eyes wide. Xiaohua's heart wasn't angry, but rather, he couldn't help but want to laugh. Yes, it was a feeling of secretly laughing. There was a feeling of patting Jin Yuqian's head and saying, good boy. This Jin Yuqian was truly of the highest quality. Not only did he offend Xiaohua with a single sentence, he even sold Wang Yunxiao out. Of course, the most important thing was that he refuted Jinyu in front of Xiaohua. A disciple with such aptitude could actually snatch my rainbow epiphyllum? Hee, even if you are late-stage Qi refining, how can you be my opponent? Xiaohua sneered in his heart. He glanced at Wang Yunxiao whose face was slightly red, but his gaze was fixed on the runes on the ceiling as if he didn't hear a word. Jin Yuqian. Master, haven't you always told disciple to speak the truth? Disciple. Jin Yuqian still felt wronged. Forget it, go back first. Reflect on your mistakes in the reflection pavilion. Wait for me to return. Zhenyu waved his hand powerlessly and said. Yes, disciple obeys. This time, Jin Yuqian was well behaved. He cupped his hands and saluted Xiaohua before leaving the Spring Thunder Hall. Looking at Jin Yuqian's back, Zhenyu smiled apologetically and said, my sex disciple is unfilial, I've let junior brother helplessness see a joke. You flatter me, you flatter me. This kid's nature is frank and sincere. This is precisely the realm that we cultivators pursue. Congratulations, senior brother. Little brother is truly envious. Helplessly, he said in all seriousness. Xiaohua, who was at the side, had long burst out laughing. His expression was strange. Wang Yunxiao said in a low voice, Junior brother Xiao, my humble junior brother's knowledge is shallow and has spoken rudely. I hope junior brother can forgive me. No. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, Junior martial brother Zhen's nature is frank and sincere, which is exactly what little brother has been pursuing all my life. Little brother can't wait to be envious, so how could I have any complaints? Besides, what junior martial brother Zhen said is the truth. Xiaohua and helplessness's tone were the same. They were really a good pair of master and disciple. Zhen Yu was a little embarrassed. At this time, helplessness pointed his finger and shouted, Senior martial brother Zhen, look, the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace are here. Hearing this, Zhen Yu took the opportunity to turn his head. Looking at the group of men and women entering the door, he said in a low voice, Alas, among the 8 Thunder Palaces, the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace are still the leaders. They have taken up more than half of the disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Indeed, when Xiaohua took a closer look, among the disciples who came in from outside the Spring Thunder Palace, there were 10 male and female disciples in the 12th level of the refinement realm. They should be the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace who were participating in the Feather Immortal Assembly. The disciple in the middle level of the 12th level of the refinement realm that Xiaohua had seen before was also among them. That's right. The Feather Immortal Assembly has 20 disciples. Basically, the Zhen, Dui, Kan, Li, Zhen, and Sun Lightning Palaces can send out 2 disciples each. The remaining disciples are all from the Qian and Kuan Lightning Palaces. This time, my Heavenly Thunder Palace has 2 disciples, while the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace have chosen 10. I wonder which Thunder Palace is short of disciples. Do you still need to say? It's definitely the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Heavenly Thunder Palace. The disciples they choose are all at the back, and it's difficult for them to become great talents. The Qian and Kuan Lightning Palaces have always selected disciples from the Imperial Lightning Sect. Moreover, every time they select disciples from the outside, those with the best aptitudes and the younger ones are always first picked by them. How can their disciples not be powerful? At this time, Zhenyu was helpless. He looked at Wang Yunshao and said, if Yunshao came to my Imperial Thunder sect 10 years ago, I'm afraid he would have been chosen by the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Don't say that. Someone gave up the opportunity to be a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and wanted to choose other Thunder Palaces. Zhenyu glanced at Xiaohua helplessly. It was hard to tell whether it was ridicule or gratification in his eyes. Junior brother, where did you learn to be careful? Which stupid disciple is it? Zhenyu was very curious. He didn't connect this matter with Xiaohua at all. I also don't know who it is. I just casually heard other junior brothers talking about it. Zhenyu's gaze turned towards the hall door as he said indifferently. Stupid as a cow. Damn it. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this time, the 10 disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace had already walked to the center of the Spring Thunder Hall. A slightly older disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace waved his hand and said, Disciples, greet the masters of the other Thunder Palaces as well as the other fellow senior brothers and junior brothers. Yes. The 6 disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace stood where they were and replied in a loud and clear voice. Soon after, they uniformly bowed towards everyone in the Spring Thunder Hall and said, Disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace greet martial uncles, senior brothers, and junior brothers. That voice was very loud and clear. Fortunately, there wasn't much dust on the Spring Thunder Hall, otherwise it would definitely have been shaken down. Xiaohua and the others also didn't dare to neglect and all returned the greeting. Immediately after, a female voice also called out without any trace of politeness, Disciples of the Earth Thunder Palace also greet masters. Yes, 4 voices like the chirping of orioles rang out, Disciples of the Earth Thunder Palace greet martial uncles and senior brothers. Although this voice wasn't as loud as the male disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace, it won in that it was crisp and didn't have an overbearing aura, making it refreshing to hear. Soon after, the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earth Thunder Palace walked to the front of the Spring Thunder Palace's high platform under the guidance of their masters and stood in their respective positions. And the atmosphere of the entire Spring Thunder Hall seemed to have become somewhat cold because of the arrival of these 2 disciples. Master, over there are 2 old friends of this disciple. They are also disciples of famous aristocratic families. This disciple will go and meet their masters. Wang Yunshao had already seen Yuan Bo and Min Gu long ago. He smiled and said to Zhenyu, Won't you go and take a look? Zhenyu was already unwilling to see Zhenyu's face and said with a smile, Since they are your old friends, Master naturally has to go and take a look. Wang Yunshao turned his head and said with a smile, Junior brother Xiao, won't you come? Xiaohua saw Yuan Bo and Min Gu earlier than Wang Yunshao, but these 2 seemed to be different from before. They didn't seem too affectionate when they saw Xiaohua, so Xiaohua also pretended not to see them. Hearing this, he waved his hand and said, Senior brother Wang, go ahead. We'll go together. We'll talk later. Zhen Yu and Wang Yunxiao helplessly nodded to Xiaohua and left, walking towards where Yuan Bo and Mingu were standing. Where's that female disciple called Sun Shu? I heard Xue Xue say that she also qualified. Why didn't she come? Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and looked around. Sure enough, he didn't see Sun Shu. Just as he was thinking, two figures hurriedly flashed past outside the Spring Thunder Hall. Xue Xue. Xiaohua couldn't help but be surprised when he saw that figure. Everyone said that a foundation establishment master would send them off, but this Sun Shu was good, directly sending off a junior sister. Sun Shu's behavior was even more interesting. When she entered the Spring Thunder Hall, she first looked around. When she saw Xiaohua, she didn't have any expression on her face and walked towards him, completely ignoring the greeting of the female disciple who seemed to be from mythical Thunder Palace. Seeing the two beautiful female disciples walking towards him, Xiaohua was a bit stunned. Zhuo Minghui was puzzled at first, but when she saw Xiaohua also raise his head, she couldn't help but feel happy. Sure enough, Sun Shu and Xue Xue walked in front of the three and bowed, "Disciple greets martial uncles." Xiaohua and Zhuo Minghui hurriedly returned the greeting, but Xiaohua was still puzzled. Martial nephews, which junior sister of Sun Thunder Palace are you two disciples of? Martial uncles, disciple is Xue Xue. Several years ago, I entered the Imperial Thunder sect with Xiaohua. Wasn't martial uncles also at the Spring Thunder Hall that day? Xue Xue said very shyly. You? Xiaohua suddenly realized. Of course, Xiaohua wasn't present when Sun Ming accepted Xue Xue, but when Sun Ming brought Xue Xue to the Jade Archive Hall, didn't she invite Xiaohua along? Xiaohua even used Xue Xue to tease Xiaohua, so he naturally had some impression of Xue Xue. He should have remembered. It was no wonder that Xiaohua didn't connect Xue Xue with his previous impression of her. The current Xue Xue was different from several years ago. Not to mention that her cultivation was already at the beginning of the 9th layer of qi refining, even her appearance had changed greatly. Her eyes were bright and kind, and her beauty was moving. Coupled with her snow-white skin and the gradually forming grace between her brows, she didn't look like the ugly duckling of the past. Since he knew she was Sun Ming's disciple, Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly returned the greeting. Martial uncle Sun Ming, how have you been? Why didn't she come to see you off? Sun Shu smiled. Master had some matters to attend to and couldn't leave, so she let disciple come. Junior sister Xue wanted to come out and get some fresh air, so she followed along. As he spoke, he glanced at Xiaohua. Xiaohua rubbed his nose and smiled. Xue Xue, you've advanced really quickly. Congratulations, congratulations. Xue Xue said unhappily, Xiaohua, are you congratulating me or mocking me? You're already at the 12th layer of qi refining, and you're still congratulating me, a 9th layer of qi refining? Xiaohua chuckled. I'm just trying to find something to talk about. Xue Xue liked Xiaohua very much. She covered her mouth and laughed brilliantly. Beside her, Zhuo Minghui stepped forward and whispered. Xue Xue, what kind of martial arts do you practice? Why do you look so beautiful? I'm afraid you were born with it. This kind of topic was a woman's favorite. Although Sun Shu was cold and elegant, she couldn't avoid it. While accompanying Xue Xue and Zhuo Minghui, Xiaohua, who looked very innocent and kept rubbing his nose, Xiaohua. Chapter 1596. Xue Xue originally came to see Xiaohua, but when she saw Zhuo Minghui, she immediately started chatting with Zhuo Minghui. Zhuo Minghui also felt that Xue Xue was more and more pleasing to the eye. She was very happy and left Xiaohua to the side. After a while, there was a slight commotion in front of them. Xiaohua looked up and saw several cultivators standing on the platform. The one in front was Zhen Qing, a golden core cultivator from Zhenlei Palace. Beside him was a foundation establishment cultivator in the late stage. He had a beard on his face and looked very rude. The Foundation Establishment cultivator's voice was very loud and clear. He said, "Are all the disciples from the various lightning palaces here?" The Spring Thunder Hall was silent and no one answered. Xiaohua laughed secretly. He didn't know how that person would answer if there were still people who didn't come. "Since all the disciples are here, we will set off immediately. I am Zhen Yu from Zhenlei Palace. I am the deputy envoy of the Tai Ching sect in Meng Nation to participate in the Feather Immortal Conference. In order to ensure the safety of the disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Conference, Martial Uncle Zhen Qing from Zhenlei Palace will be the envoy personally. Therefore, you don't have to worry about the safety of the disciples." After Zhen Yu finished speaking, he turned his head and seemed to ask Zhen Qing. Zhen Qing shook his head slightly and waved his hand. Lightning flashed and a pitch-black magic weapon flew out of the hall. "Disciples, let's board the boat outside the hall." Zhen Yu shouted loudly and bowed to let Zhen Qing go first. Zhen Qing nodded slightly and stepped down from the platform. He cupped his hands at the disciples below and walked out of the Spring Thunder Hall. Then, the disciples of Qiankuan Lightning Palace followed him out. Everyone moved. At this moment, Xue Xue walked in front of Xiaohua and whispered, "Xiaohua, you have to be careful." Xiaohua smiled and nodded. "Don't worry. I think your senior sister has already told you how I passed. I will just take this trip as an eye-opener. Nothing will happen to me if I don't stand out." "How did you pass? Could it be that there is something strange?" Xue Xue was slightly curious, but she didn't pursue the matter. She stretched out her hand and removed the storage pouch from her waist before passing it over, and then she said with slight embarrassment, "The things within the storage pouch aren't much, but they were made by the talisman crafting disciples of my Thunderstorm Palace. Master gave them to me, so take them and use them today." Xiaohua took the storage pouch and opened it to take a look. Apart from a few spirit stones, there were also medicinal pills and talismans. Naturally, there were also a lot of fireball talismans. Xue Xue continued softly, "I don't know what kind of talisman you used, but seeing that you're here. The fireball charms used in the valley are very handy, so I took a few more." "Ha, very good, very good." Xiaohua didn't hold back. He waved his hand and took away all the items in the storage pouch. Xue Xue was happy when she saw that Xiaohua didn't treat her as an outsider. She took the storage pouch and said happily, "I hope that you and my senior sister will be able to perform well in the Feather Immortal Gathering." Sun Shu smiled faintly and followed the crowd out of the Spring Thunder Hall. Behind them, Yuan Bo and Min Gu didn't look very good. Wang Yunxiao looked at the two of them meaningfully. Outside the Spring Thunder Hall, a small lightning boat was parked on the empty ground. The pitch-black boat had faint purple lightning and sparks flashing on it. Zhen Qing was already standing at the bow of the boat with her hands behind her back. "All right, Xiaohua, you can go up now. Be careful." She stopped helplessly and said in a low voice, "The Feather Immortal Gathering is a good opportunity to make a name for yourself, but there are also certain risks. If you really want to focus on cultivation, you can just go and take a look." Xiaohua smiled when he saw that his master had finally relented. "Thank you for your understanding, master." She glared at him helplessly and said, "I'm not done yet. If there's a chance, why don't you show them a few moves and let them see the power of our myriad Thunder Valley?" "I understand," Xiaohua said with a smile. "You have to rely on yourself outside. Be careful. If there's anything wrong, follow your grandmaster closely." Zhuo Minghui also reminded him. Xiaohua looked at his master's wife who was treating him like a child and said with a smile, "I understand." Then, he looked at Xue Xue and nodded slightly. He turned to Sun Shu and said with a smile, "Senior Sun, let's go." Sun Shu nodded and flew up the lightning boat with Xiaohua. The two of them stood at the edge of the lightning boat and waved at Helplessness and the others. When all the disciples boarded the lightning boat, Zhen Qing waved her hand and cast a spell on the formation plate of the lightning boat. The lightning boat buzzed and immediately flew into the sky and flew away at an extremely fast speed. When the lightning boat disappeared, Zhuo Minghui smiled and said to Xue Xue in front of the Spring Thunder Hall, "Xue Xue, if you're free after cultivating, can you come to the Myriad Thunder Valley for a chat?" Xue Xue's face was slightly red. She bowed and said, I still have to tell Master. If Master agrees, I'll definitely go. I will take my leave first." After Xue Xue flew away, Helplessness and Zhuo Minghui also flew to the Myriad Thunder Valley. In the sky, Helplessness sighed. "Xiaohua, this brat. Instead of cultivating properly, he's actually thinking about dual cultivation. However, this Xue Xue is really not bad. And then Sun Shu is also good." Zhuo Minghui said with a smile. 2. Helplessness curled her lips and said, "Can Xiaohua handle it? Is he still cultivating?" Putting aside Helplessness and Zhuo Minghui worrying about Xiaohua's cultivation, on the lightning boat, Xiaohua was originally standing together with Sun Shu. However, when the surrounding people were sitting cross-legged, cultivating or whispering, the two of them became awkward. Sun Shu looked at the disciples of Distant Thunder Palace in the distance and said, "I will go over there and see junior sister, senior sister Sun, please." Xiaohua quickly said, "Disciple also needs to cultivate." After Sun Shu left, Xiaohua immediately sat down and took out a soul-gathering pill from his storage bag. He ate it and closed his eyes to cultivate. The lightning boat was extremely fast, but Meng country was indeed far away. For more than 10 days, the lightning boat didn't stop at all, but they still didn't reach Meng country. During this time, Xiaohua ignored everyone and only hid in a corner of the lightning boat to cultivate. Wang Yunxiao and the other two looked at Xiaohua's appearance and also extinguished the thought of catching up with him. Instead, they found an opportunity to sit together with the disciples of Distant Thunder Palace and Converted Thunder Palace. Looking at the 10 disciples of Heavenly Thunder Palace and Earth Thunder Palace, they seemed to have a feeling of superiority. They only talked to these 2 disciples of Heavenly Thunder Palace and ignored the others who went to talk to them. After a long time, no one went to eat soft rebuffs. The lightning boat was controlled by Zhen Qing and Zhen Yu. The 2 of them took turns to rest and didn't interfere much with the movements of the 20 disciples. However, when they occasionally saw the indifference and arrogance of the disciples of Heavenly Thunder Palace, Zhen Qing slightly frowned. Of course, Zhen Qing also paid attention to Xiaohua. After all, Xiaohua was the only one who closed his eyes and cultivated the moment he boarded the thunder ship. He didn't talk to anyone at all. Furthermore, he had met Xiaohua during the disciple selection. He was also the one who gave Xiaohua the concealed flame physique. Therefore, when he saw Xiaohua reach the early stage of the 12th layer of the qi refining realm in just a few years, Zhen Qing couldn't help but nod her head slightly. On this day, it was a dreary and misty day. Raindrops fell from the sky and hit the lightning boat. The lightning boat originally had a defensive brilliance, but Zhen Qing seemed to like this weather. He actually removed the defensive formation, allowing the raindrops to hit his body. A strong wind blew everyone's clothes and long hair. Woo-woo, the sound of a flute sobbed. Sitting upright on the lightning boat, Zhen Qing started to play his flute. Xiaohua was cultivating when he suddenly heard the mournful sound of the flute. The true qi flowing in his meridians became sluggish at first, then it actually started to flow with the flute sound. Xiaohua felt as if he was at the lakeside of a drizzling lake. The mirror-like surface of the lake was disrupted by the raindrops. Countless black dots formed on the surface of the lake, making a pitter-patter-patter sound. That sound was like a chaotic state of mind, unable to calm down. There was a faint mist by the lakeside. Xiaohua felt that there seemed to be a person he was worried about in the mist. However, the mournful voice separated him from that person. He couldn't see her clearly, nor could he touch her. Xiaohua's heart was filled with grief. He tried his best to rush into the mist, wanting to see what was going on. However, the more hurried he was, the more confused he became. He walked through the grass by the lakeside and walked through the forest by the lakeside. All along, he could only see a corner of a pure white dress fluttering in front of his eyes. At this moment, the sound of the flute suddenly became louder. It was like a strong ray of sunlight, piercing through the mist. The pure white dress suddenly flashed, and the graceful figure suddenly turned around. What entered Xiaohua's eyes was a beautiful face. That face seemed unfamiliar yet familiar. Only the beauty mole on the left side of the chin was particularly eye-catching. Dream? Xiaohua couldn't help but groan, Fairy Hongxia. With this call, Xiaohua suddenly woke up. He didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest and hurriedly entered the space. It was very easy for him to comprehend the heavenly Tao. He no longer paid attention to Zhen Qing's disturbing flute sound. However, Xiaohua, who had always been emotionless during cultivation, had a drop of sparkling and translucent tear seeping out from the corner of his eye. Xiaohua sank into cultivation. After an unknown period of time, his entire body suddenly trembled violently, and he was jolted awake from his cultivation. "Io, what's going on?" Xiaohua opened his eyes and saw that it was actually chaos. The entire thunder ship was shaking violently. Everyone on the thunder ship couldn't stand steadily and was floating in the air. As for Zhen Qing, she had already put away her flute somewhere. She flew out of the thunder ship and released her divine sense to observe carefully. Xiaohua frowned. He didn't fly up in a hurry. Instead, the true qi in his body moved slightly. His entire body was nailed to the thunder ship in a very strange manner. Why are there tears at the corner of my eyes? Xiaohua felt that something was wrong with his face. He used his hand to wipe away the tears. At this moment, he heard Zhen Qing's somewhat nervous voice, "Zhen Yu, control the thunder ship first. I will go down and take a look." "Yes, disciple obeys," Zhen Yu replied. Just as he was about to control the thunder ship, a spirit beast that looked very similar to a leopard suddenly flew out from the pitch-black clouds below the thunder ship. It crashed into the bottom of the thunder ship, causing the thunder ship to almost capsize. The people on the thunder ship were also swaying left and right. Chapter 1597. Flying Leopard. Evil Creature. When Zhen Qing, who was flying in the air, saw that the spirit beast had actually escaped from her spiritual sense attack, she couldn't help but become furious. She slapped her storage pouch and a 5-colored object flew into the air. It was Zhen Qing's favorite magic tool, Serenity Seeker. This Serenity Seeker was different from ordinary magic tools. It looked like a flute. When it flew into the air, a cold, whimper sound was emitted from the Serenity Seeker. A sound attack magic tool. Xiaohua's figure stood steadily on the tilted thunderboat. He had already released his Buddhist awareness and saw the situation outside the thunderboat clearly. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. However, when he thought about how Zhen Qing was proficient in music, this kind of formless sound attack magic tool was definitely Zhen Qing's best choice. When Zhen Qing used it, it would definitely have boundless power. Sure enough, when the Serenity Seeker flew into the air, it emitted a faint brilliance. When Zhen Qing's magic power was activated, the brilliance seemed to follow a kind of rhythm. It would expand and shrink from time to time. Moreover, it was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. The flying leopard that knocked the thunderboat askew was currently leaping into the air vigorously. On its bronze-colored body, its short fur was standing upright like steel. The spirit beast's 4 hooves were suspended in the air. On its forelimbs, there were 2 wings that looked like feathers yet were not feathers. They were also flesh yet not flesh. The edges of the wings were connected to its body by a thin layer of flesh. The flying leopard's eyes were glowing green and faintly flashing with brilliance. The sound of the Serenity Seeker spread out invisibly. In the beginning, the flying leopard didn't hear it. It opened its sharp teeth and swayed its head left and right. However, as Zhen Qing's magic power was activated, the sound wave became even denser. It was like a silk net that wrapped around the flying leopard. At this moment, the flying leopard that was accumulating power finally sensed the danger. Wuao, the flying leopard raised its head and roared. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was sucked into it. Rays of faint brilliance appeared from the top of the flying leopard's head and flowed to its tail like water. At the same time, the flying leopard's two wings violently flapped as if it was trying its best to break free from the restraint of the sound wave. However, the winged leopard's limbs were twitching and its body was twisting rapidly. Zhen Qing's magic item was still very powerful. The winged leopard was slowly being restrained by the sound waves. At this moment, the thunder ship had already stabilized under Zhen Yu's control. Everyone landed on the thunder ship in shock. Seeing that the flying leopard beast was captured, Xiaohua and the others heaved a sigh of relief. There were even a few disciples who were eager to rush out of the thunder ship to help Zhen Qing. However, without Zhen Qing's permission, Zhen Yu didn't dare to approach the thunder boat. He could only stop the thunder boat from afar. The flying leopard beast struggled even harder, but its movements were getting softer and softer. The chaotic heaven-earth spiritual qi in the surroundings was also gradually calming down. In just a short while, Zhen Qing would be able to completely subdue the flying leopard beast. However, just as everyone thought that victory was in their hands, the flying leopard beast stopped struggling. It raised its head with great difficulty and opened its mouth, revealing its fangs. There was a faint earthy yellow glow in its mouth. Once this glow appeared, the heaven-earth spiritual qi that had just calmed down became chaotic again. It was all rapidly sucked into the flying leopard beast's mouth. Roar, with a deafening roar, the flying leopard beast's body once again emitted a glow. This time, every time the glow flowed through the flying leopard beast's body, the flying leopard beast's body grew larger. This is bad. Seeing this, Zhen Qing was shocked. At the same time she activated her magic power, she clenched her teeth and quickly moved her fingers. When Netherworld Seeking released the soundless wave, it let out another sound. The sound was very unpleasant to hear. It was like two pieces of wood hitting each other or rocks hitting each other. The flying leopard beast shook its head and wagged its tail. Its eyes revealed an extremely painful expression. Seeing that the sound wave was effective, Zhen Qing moved her fingers again. She wanted to completely defeat the flying leopard beast. Unfortunately, in the span of a few breaths, the winged leopard's body had expanded by more than 30%. Following another strong flash of light from the winged leopard, a series of crackling sounds rang in their minds. The soundless wave that trapped the winged leopard with Serenity Seeker had exploded. With a pu sound, a mouthful of blood spurted out from Zhen Qing's mouth. She seemed to have been injured because her mystic instrument's attack had been broken. Seeing that it was free, the flying leopard beast let out another roar. It spread its wings and charged towards Zhen Qing like a shadow. Zhen Qing was caught off guard. She quickly dodged and pointed her finger. Serenity Seeking drew an arc in front of her. Zhen Qing barely dodged the flying leopard beast. However, the flying leopard beast's tail swung in mid-air and unexpectedly hit Zhen Qing's waist. The tail swung through the spiritual energy in the air and made a sob sound. Needless to say, the strength of the tail was definitely impressive. If Zhen Qing was hit, it was hard to say what would happen. Flying and speed were definitely not Zhen Qing's strong points. Just dodging the flying leopard beast's attack was already difficult enough. The flying leopard beast's attack put Zhen Qing in a difficult position. Sigh. Zhen Qing sighed. In a hurry, she pointed her finger at Serenity Seeking again. The magic weapon descended a few feet and blocked the flying leopard beast's tail. At the same time, Zhen Qing hurriedly circulated her magic power and wanted to increase the glow of the protection. The flying leopard beast's tail seemed to have eyes. When it swung its tail in front of Serenity Seeking, it actually swept past the bottom of Serenity Seeking and hit Zhen Qing's waist. With a loud "pa" sound, Zhen Qing's body was sent flying by the flying leopard beast's tail. At the same time, the glow at his waist flickered rapidly and flickered a few times. His defense was also about to be destroyed. Good heavens, this is an Aurus Core stage cultivator. Xiao Hua, who was watching from afar, was shocked. He thought to himself, I wonder what rank this flying leopard beast is. It actually has such great strength and is so arrogant. Just as he was thinking, the flying leopard beast's vigorous body made a beautiful turn in the air. Its pair of green eyes emitted a flirtatious light as it looked at Xiao Hua's thunder ship. Oh no! Xiao Hua was shocked. Even without his reminder, Zhen Yu was already flustered. Under the circulation of her magic power, the thunder ship did not dare to stop. It looked for a direction and fled in panic. Wu, seeing the thunder ship fly away, the flying leopard beast let out a long roar. Its body flashed again and it flapped its wings, chasing after the thunder ship at an even faster speed than before. Even with Zhen Qing's speed, she could not outrun the flying leopard beast. How could Zhen Yu escape with the thunder ship? In just a few breaths, the flying leopard beast had caught up to the edge of the thunder ship. This time, the flying leopard beast did not overturn the thunder ship. Instead, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws, grabbing at an aura refining stage cultivator on the thunder ship. At the same time, the flying leopard beast's tail that sent Zhen Qing flying once again swung from behind and struck the thunder ship. The lightning ship was protected by a talisman. However, the talisman was extremely thin under the tremendous strength of the winged leopard beast. The winged leopard beast's tail slashed through the light, and the hurricane in the air poured into the lightning ship, blowing everyone into the air. Everyone had already planned for this. Once the defense was broken, they would activate their flying talismans and flee in panic, fearing that the flying leopard beast would find them. At the same time, the entire thunderbolt also swayed and fell rapidly from the sky. Xiao Hua was naturally not an exception. His flying speed was extremely fast. Even if the other 20 disciples were attacked by the flying leopard beast, it might not be his turn. Moreover, the person that the flying leopard beast attacked was far away from him at the other end of the thunder ship. It was enough for Xiao Hua to escape. However, just as Xiao Hua's figure flew into the air, preparing to flee, Xiao Hua unconsciously froze where his gaze landed. This flying leopard beast did not attack the 10 arrogant male and female disciples of the Qian and Kun lightning palaces. Instead, it chose to attack Sun Shu of the Sun Lightning Palace. At this moment, Sun Shu's face was ashen. A jade-like magic tool in his hand emitted a red luster, forming a shield-like defense. He was trying his best to block the flying leopard beast's sharp claws. In the eyes of the winged leopard, the red shield was like a pastry. A casual wave was enough to break it. Helpless, Sun Shu had no choice but to channel his transcendence energy with all his might to maintain the Dharma artifact. His figure could only hover in midair. At this moment, Zhen Qing had already stabilized herself in the distance. Seeing the flying leopard beast attacking Sun Shu's expression changed drastically. He pointed at Serenity Seeker beside him and Serenity Seeker followed him to the thunder ship. Zhen Yu, who was controlling the thunder ship, was in an even worse state. By the time he managed to stabilize the thunder ship, he was already far away from the flying leopard beast. It was already too late for him to move. What should I do? Xiao Hua thought to himself. Seeing that the light in Sun Shu's hand was getting dimmer and dimmer, Xiao Hua knew that her transcendence energy would not be able to hold on for much longer. If not for the winged leopard destroying the shield playfully, Sun Shu would have long been killed by the sharp claws. Xiao Hua calculated in his mind. He felt that his flying speed was slower than the flying leopard beast, but wasn't Zhen Qing right behind the flying leopard beast? If he hid behind Zhen Qing, he would have some confidence. Therefore, Xiaohua no longer hesitated. He activated the hibernating thunder escape and flew towards the flying leopard beast. Sun Shu's heart was like dead ashes. She did not expect the flying leopard beast to attack her. Moreover, her senior sister from Thunder Palace did not hesitate at all and had already escaped far away. She did not even have a helper. Actually, at this moment, she did not blame her senior sister Li. Even if their identities were switched, her first choice would probably be to be similar to her. However, when the flying leopard beast destroyed her magic weapon playfully, she felt a kind of sorrow as a cultivator, a kind of extreme desolation. The flying leopard beast in front of her stirred up the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Sun Shu almost did not have the strength to breathe. The flying leopard beast quickly destroyed her magic weapon a few times and seemed to have lost its patience. It stretched out its sharp claws and the magic weapon in Sun Shu's hand was knocked away by a huge force. Before Sun Shu could take out her yellow talisman, the sharp claws had already touched her chest. One could imagine, in the blink of an eye, her beautiful curves would turn into blood. Sun Shu closed her eyes mournfully. Strangely, her heart was very calm. However, at this moment, Xiaohua arrived. Sun Shu felt a warm arm wrap around her waist. A somewhat familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar voice sounded in her ears. "Don't use your magic power." Then, a biting wind sounded in Sun Shu's ears. Immediately after, the flying leopard beast's furious roar was left behind her. Chapter 1598. Xiaohua used the hibernating thunder escape and grabbed Sun Shu's waist, saving her from the flying leopard's claws. Then, without stopping, he immediately flew away. However, even though Xiaohua's speed was extremely fast, the flying leopard's tail was even faster. A shadow flashed past and the flying leopard's tail, which was harder than an iron rod, attacked Xiaohua's waist from top to bottom. Xiaohua had already planned this when he flew over. The tip of the devil's spear in his hand was already ready. Seeing the flying leopard's tail attack, he immediately went up to meet it. Just like when he was dealing with Zhen Qing, the flying leopard's tail also swayed slightly, wanting to dodge the devil's spear. However, Xiaohua's wrist moved slightly and the devil's spear seemed to be attracted by the flying leopard's tail. With a slight tremble, a few other devil's spear tips suddenly appeared and stabbed out with the flying leopard's tail. Pa! The flying leopard's tail hit the devil's spear tip. A force that Xiaohua had never encountered before rushed into the devil's spear tip. At this moment, Xiaohua's devil's spear tip moved again. He actually used the devil's spear tip to change the direction of the flying leopard's tail's attack and borrowed the force to fly towards Zhen Qing. This unforeseen event happened in a few breaths of time. The bystanders who were fleeing in panic didn't see it clearly. Only a few disciples who had flown away earlier occasionally released their divine sense and saw Xiaohua holding Sun Shu and flying to Zhen Qing's side. Zhen Qing was originally shocked, but when she saw Xiaohua suddenly fly out and was strangely sent flying to her side by the flying leopard beast, she was shocked, but at the same time, a relaxed expression appeared on her face. "Go!" Zhen Qing shouted. Netherseeker once again increased its speed. The sound waves on it wrapped around the flying leopard. At this moment, the flying leopard was somewhat irritable. Its head swayed rapidly as if it wasn't used to the sound attack. Immediately, the flying leopard's limbs stiffened. The soundless wave began to take effect. The flying leopard let out a long roar and suddenly expanded, charging towards Zhen Qing. Ah! Even though Zhen Qing wasn't afraid of the winged leopard, Xiaohua and Sun Shu were by his side, so he couldn't help but protect them. Right at this moment, a voice resounded. "Fellow Taoist, who's up ahead?" Subsequently, a resounding cry of a bird resounded. Caw! The bird's chirp was extremely loud and clear, as if it could pierce through heaven and earth. The winged leopard beast stopped abruptly when it heard the chirp. It looked in the direction of the sound in shock before diving into the clouds below and flying underground without looking back. Someone's coming. Xiao Hua's heart was also beating violently. He was still in a state of shock, but when he heard the chirping of birds and human voices, he was overjoyed. He hurriedly let go of Sun Shu, allowing him to activate the flight talisman. He stood to the side with a complicated expression. Although Sun Shu knew that the danger had passed, she was the same as Xiao Hua, unable to immediately calm down. Her towering chest violently heaved up and down. I am the Imperial Thunder Sect's Zhen Qing. May I know which fellow Daoist has arrived? When Zhen Qing saw that the flying leopard had disappeared, he didn't chase after it. Instead, he pointed at the flying leopard above his head. He looked up with a trace of luck on his face. Layers of floating clouds in the distance were blown away by the hurricane. After the hurricane, an unbelievably large bird beast appeared in Xiao Hua's field of vision. The bird beast looked like an ibis. It had a slender neck and a slender beak. Its black and white feathers fluttered in the wind. Ah! Xiao Hua almost wanted to rub his eyes. He couldn't believe that it was so big. It was almost the same size as Zhen Qing's thunderbolt. On the back of the bird was a golden core old man with white hair and beard. He had his hands behind his back and was leisurely looking over. Howling Night Ibis. Zhen Qing's eyes narrowed as he shouted. He then looked around. At this moment, Zhen Yu had already driven the thunderbolt into the air. The disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect who had scattered in all directions were also gathering here. Are you a fellow Daoist from the Seven Skills sect? Zhen Qing transmitted his voice. Ha ha ha, Thunderbolt. So it's a fellow Daoist from the Imperial Thunder sect. The Golden Core cultivator laughed loudly. The howling night ibis spread its wings and stopped not too far away from Zhen Qing. So it's fellow Daoist Wei Chongxi. Clearly, Zhen Qing was familiar with the Golden Core cultivator. He had a faint smile on his face as he cupped his hands and smiled. Ha, fellow Daoist Zhen. Are you also going to the Tai Ching sect to participate in the Feather Immortal gathering? How come, did you encounter something here? Wei Chongxi smiled as he looked at the thunderbolt behind Zhen Qing and the Qi refining disciples who were flying over from all directions. I won't hide it from fellow Daoist Wei. Just now, a flying leopard suddenly attacked us. However, under the resistance of my Imperial Thunder sect's disciples, the flying leopard was unable to escape. Zhen Qing said indifferently. Ah! Flying leopard? Wei Chongxi pretended to be surprised and shouted, that's a 5th-rank spiritual beast. Fellow Daoist Zhen, your strength is about the same as the flying leopard. However, you don't seem to be as fast as the flying leopard, right? You also don't have the tyrannical strength of the flying leopard, right? Then, he looked at the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples curiously and said with grief, your sect's disciples didn't suffer any casualties? Zhen Qing smiled and said, thanks to the Seven Skills sect, your sect's howling night ibis is also a 5th-rank spiritual beast. Its cry had already scared the flying leopard away. The winged leopard beast is so powerful that it overturned your sect's thunderbolt. Even with fellow Daoist Zhen leading the way, the winged leopard beast couldn't be chased away. How could a mere guard beast of my Seven Skills sect be able to chase it away? Fellow Daoist Zhen, you're exaggerating. Wei Chongxi was immensely proud. He lowered his head to look below and said, this is the edge of Incloud Black Forest. It's a place where spiritual beasts roam. If fellow Daoist Zhen doesn't mind, why don't we head to Tai Ching sect together? Zhen Qing pondered for a moment. He knew that there was a barrier between the Seven Skills sect and the Imperial Thunder sect. However, who could say that there wasn't a barrier between the Seven Skills sect and the Xuanyan school? No matter what, the two cultivation sects were from the country of Xi. Compared to the cultivation sects from the country of Meng and the country of Lian, they should have a common enemy. There shouldn't be any problems on the way to Tai Ching sect. Of course, the 5 cultivation sects of the country of Shi would often travel together. Therefore, Zhenqing only thought for a moment before cupping his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist Wei, since you're so kind, I wouldn't dare to refuse. Alright, then my 7 skills sect will ride the Howling Night Ibis first and the Imperial Thunder sect will follow behind. As fellow Taoist wishes." Alright, Wei Chongxi didn't seem to move, but the whistling night ibis stopped in midair and let out a long cry. Its black and white wings suddenly flapped, and the several qi condensation cultivators on its back flew away in the blink of an eye, carrying the dozen or so peak 12th layer qi condensation cultivators. Zhenqing turned his head to look at Xiaohua and waved his hand. "Let's go." Then, the 3 of them flew onto the thunder boat. After everyone boarded the thunder boat, Zhenqing personally took control and chased after the howling night ibis. Sun Shu followed behind Xiaohua and landed on the thunder boat. As soon as Xiaohua touched the ground, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to cultivate. Seeing this, Sun Shu hesitated. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, thank you for saving my life." Then, he didn't go far. Instead, he found a place around Xiaohua and sat down cross-legged, cultivating diligently. The other 18 aura refining disciples were in stark contrast to the 2 of them. Among them, several had witnessed what happened just now and were whispering to the disciples they were familiar with. They'd naturally experienced Xiaohua's flying speed, but it was still slower than the flying leopard. They couldn't understand why Xiaohua would disregard his own life to save Sun Shu. Of course, with just a few words, everyone was like the people in the marketplace, using the words beauty doesn't captivate people to explain it. Naturally, Yuan Bo's expression became even more unsightly. Yuan Bo and Min Ji's thoughts didn't need to be said. They were both worldly disciples and could be considered second class in the Imperial Thunder sect. If they could find a female direct disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect to dual cultivate with, needless to say, they'd have a solid foundation in the Imperial Thunder sect in the future. Sun Shu and Xue Xue were both Sun Ming's disciples, and Sun Ming was a gold core cultivator. How could the 2 of them not be envious of such a backer? Not to mention that Sun Shu and Xue Xue were first-class beauties. Even if they were Wu Yan, the 2 of them would still cover their eyes with a handkerchief and recognize them as beauties. However, Xue Xue entered the Imperial Thunder sect with Xiaohua and was previously treated coldly by Yuan Bo and the others. Although Mingu felt that Xue Xue was close to Xiaohua, when he thought about his appearance, his background, and his cultivation, he always felt a trace of luck in his heart. As for Yuan Bo, he had already separated from Mingu and was eyeing Sun Shu. Although Sun Shu couldn't see any connection with Xiaohua, Xiaohua saved Sun Shu and Sun Shu was sitting close to Xiaohua and cultivating like a little bird relying on a human. Yuan Bo already felt that something was wrong, so how could he not have any thoughts? On the contrary, Wang Yunxiao listened to everyone's discussion and looked at Yuan Bo's expression, but he didn't say a word. Xiaohua sat on the thunder boat and released his Buddhist awareness. He slowly scanned the crowd and stopped around Zhenqing. Zhenqing didn't feel anything, she only released her divine sense to the maximum. She was constantly scanning the area, afraid that she would encounter another spirit beast surprise attack. Seeing that the gold core stage Zhenqing couldn't sense his Buddhist awareness, Xiaohua was satisfied and withdrew his Buddhist awareness. Shortly after, he opened his eyes slightly and looked at Sun Shu who was cultivating beside him. He then looked at the many disciples who were gesticulating and snorted coldly from his nose and started cultivating. Several days later, they saw the edge of the ink cloud black forest and there were no more dangers. Exhausted, Zhenqing handed over the thunder boat to Zhenyu and sat beside Xiaohua. She took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it, closing her eyes to recover her magic power. After waiting for 2 hours, Zhenqing opened her eyes and looked at Xiaohua. She transmitted her voice, "Xiaohua, what you used just now, was it the hibernating thunder escape?" Xiaohua opened his eyes, looked at Zhenqing and nodded slightly. Seeing that Xiaohua confirmed her guess, Zhen Qing didn't feel happy. Instead, she was even more confused. The hibernating thunder escape was naturally not something that Xiaohua, an aura-refining disciple of the Thunderclap Palace, could successfully cultivate. However, Zhen Qing didn't ask too much. She smiled and transmitted her voice, "You're very good. I owe you a favor." Xiaohua shook his head slightly. After thinking for a moment, he said in a low voice, "If Grandmaster feels that it's inappropriate, then play another song for disciple." Chapter 1599. Ha 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 ha, what's so difficult about that? Zhen Qing laughed loudly. She took out a flute and placed it next to her lips. A melodious tune once again flowed on the thunderboat. Xiaohua smiled. He entered the space again with the rhythm of the tune. His body's true energy was also slowly circulating under the influence of the heavenly laws embodiment technique. After the tune ended, Zhen Qing stood up and released her divine sense. She said, "Disciples, we are now in Meng Empire. We will reach Taiqing sect in a few days. There is no danger in between. Cultivate more and strive to win glory for our Imperial Thunder sect in the Feather Immortal Gathering." "Yes, thank you for your teachings, martial ancestor," the disciples said in unison and closed their eyes to cultivate. Xiaohua's slightly opened eyes were filled with confusion. He muttered in his heart, "What's going on? Last time when martial ancestor Zhen played the tune, my cultivation increased rapidly. It's more than a month's worth of cultivation. But why didn't the tune have any effect? Forget it, forget it. Music is martial ancestor Zhen's cultivation method. It's enough that I can get some benefits. What else can I ask for?" Xiaohua closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. Although Sun Shu, who was beside Xiaohua, had been cultivating with her eyes closed, her mind was always in a mess. No matter what, she couldn't calm down. She couldn't cultivate at all. This was not surprising. Sun Shu had always lived in the Sun Lei Palace. With Sun Ming, an Aurus Core stage cultivator, as her master, she had many privileges in the Imperial Thunder sect. Many people protected her and doted on her. Even if it was a routine training, there would always be disciples around to protect her. She had experienced the feeling of life and death before, but the coldness and self-preservation of others in the line of life and death shattered something in her heart. It made her understand what it meant to be heartless and to protect oneself. She was thinking and reflecting, so she couldn't cultivate in peace. Sure enough, in the next few days, the thunderboat flew very smoothly. Every day, several 7 skills sect disciples with profound cultivation would come over to interact with the Imperial Thunder sect disciples. However, Xiaohua's cultivation was only at the early stage of qi refining stage, so he was never the center of attention. Most of the time, it was the disciples of the Qian and Kun lightning palaces who came out to receive him. As for whether they sat together to chat or discuss their cultivation experiences, Xiaohua didn't care. On the other hand, Sun Shu was even colder than before. Occasionally, he would stand up and look at the scenery outside the thunderboat. His brows were slightly furrowed as if he had something on his mind. It must be because he suddenly saw the fickleness of human nature and found it hard to adapt, right? On this day, in front of the thunderboat, a fiery red sun rose from the east. Endless brilliance shone over the entire land. Under that red sun, 3 towering mountains stood in the sky. The Taiqing sect is up ahead. Zhen Qing, who was standing at the edge of the thunderboat with her sleeves folded, was illuminated by the orange sunlight. There was an indescribable expression on her face. Hearing this, Xiaohua stopped cultivating and stood up. He walked to the edge of the thunderboat and looked as far as his eyes could see. The 3 mountains were like 3 pillars that supported the heavens and the earth, supporting the heaven and earth. It is said that when the heaven and earth were first created, there was a mass of chaos. A saint was born from the chaos and split the chaos. Yang was the heaven and the yin was the earth. Later on, afraid that the heaven and earth would merge, the saint created the heaven, earth, and human peaks to support the heaven and earth. The Taiching sect's heaven, earth, and human peaks boast that they are the pillars that the saint supports the heaven and earth. Seeing Xiaohua stand up and look, Zhen Qing said in a low voice, the Taiching sect itself is divided into the heaven sect, earth sect, and human sect. They are located in the 3 peaks. Martial ancestor, disciple has a question. Xiaohua stared at the mountain for a long time, then bowed and asked. Say it. Zhen Qing had a good impression of Xiaohua, so she said with a smile. Since it is the pillar that supports the heaven and earth, then just fly up and see if there is a peak on this mountain. Xiaohua blinked his eyes and said with a smile. Ha ha ha, Zhen Qing was stunned at first, then she clapped her hands and said, this idea is simple. But, do you think the Taiching sect's cultivators wouldn't think of it? Could it be, that this is really the pillar of heaven? Xiaohua's body shook, and he said in disbelief, but, disciple thinks that even if they want to support the heaven and earth, they can't be gathered together, right? Wouldn't it be better if they were scattered? Zhen Qing said unhappily, when did this old man say that this is the pillar of heaven? This is just the Taiching sect's boasting. Who would believe it? As for whether the heaven, earth, and human peaks have a peak or not, I'm afraid only the Taiching sect's cultivators know. Won't we know if we fly up and see? Xiaohua said casually. Zhen Qing said with a smile, Xiaohua, I'm afraid you haven't flown up to the sky before, right? Xiaohua was stunned, then he nodded and said, yes, why would disciple fly up to the sky for no reason? And, then have you escaped underground before? Of course, Xiaohua answered honestly. Presumably, once you reach a certain depth, you won't be able to go any deeper, right? Zhen Qing said with a smile. Yes. Xiaohua nodded, then said, according to what martial ancestor said, flying to the heavens is also ordinary. And, that's right, the sky isn't as calm as you think. Above us, there are astral winds, thunder winds, heavenly winds, and so on. The higher we go, the more profound our cultivation is. Who would take the risk to see whether the 3 peaks have a peak? Xiaohua never thought that the azure sky above his head would have so many dangers. He was shocked, but he bowed and said, many thanks for martial ancestors' teachings. And Zhen Qing waved her hand and said with a smile, you have the hidden fire physique, so your true qi is the hardest to control. Your state of mind is very important. Remember that there is always a sky above the sky, and there will always be someone better than you. While she was talking, the whistling night ibis flying in front of the thunderbolt suddenly cried out, and that sharp cry once again resounded through the sky. This thing. Did it run into another spirit beast? After several days of observation, Xiaohua knew that the whistling night ibis loved to fight. Whenever a spirit beast appeared nearby, it would cry out in protest. If it weren't for the 7 skills sect's disciples restraining it, it would have already fought several rounds. Roar! Just as the whistling night ibis cried out, a dragon's roar that was many times more majestic than a bird's cry came from the Taiching sect. Although the dragon's roar was very far away, it sounded like it was ringing in Xiaohua's heart. The magic power around Xiaohua's body suddenly froze, and he couldn't move his body. Little White? Xiaohua was delighted. This dragon's roar sounded very familiar. Immediately, the dragon transformation art that Xiaohua had been cultivating in his meridians sped up. His true qi flowed through his meridians, and the magic power in his body began to flow again. He looked at Zhen Qing, who was beside him, and frowned. She glanced at Zhen Yu, who was controlling the thunderbolt, and found that he wasn't affected much. The thunderbolt sank a few feet, then flew up again. But the 7 skills sect disciples in the distance were in a miserable state. Obviously, the dragon's roar was targeted at the whistling night ibis. Wherever the dragon's roar went, the whistling night ibis was immediately bound and fell from the sky like a rock. The Seven Skills sect's two main disciples, Wei Chengxi and Qing Xiang, used their magic power to break free from the bindings. The two of them flew into the sky, but the other dozen or so qi refining disciples were in a miserable state. They fell from the sky like the whistling night ibis. Go quickly. Seeing this, Zhen Qing's face was expressionless. She urged her magic power and the entire thunderbolt flew towards where the Seven Skills sect disciples fell. Wei Chengxi and Qing Xiang couldn't take care of all the disciples, so they could only catch 3 or 4 of them. The others were still falling. Evil creatures. Just as the Imperial Thunder sect's thunderbolt caught a few disciples, a fiery red dragon that was dozens of feet long flew over from the distant horizon. A furious roar came from the dragon's head. Roar, another dragon's roar resounded through the heavens and earth. Everyone felt their bodies become lighter and their magic power could be used again. Not only were the dozen or so disciples lifted into the air in a panic, the whistling night ibis also struggled to stabilize themselves. After everyone calmed down, the fiery red dragon also flew in front of everyone. Sigh, too bad it's not Little White. Looking at the huge dragon's head not far away, Xiao Hua was a bit disappointed. This dragon's head didn't seem to be comparable to Little White. The dragon's head was clearly visible, but it was more like a snake's head. There was only a single horn protruding from the top of the snake's head, and there was also a hint of a dragon's horn. Then there were the 2 faint dragon whiskers that grew from the sides of the snake's mouth. Looking at the dragon's body that was dozens of feet thick, the scales on its body had just taken the shape of dragon scales. There were also 3 dragon claws that were smaller than an infant's fist that had just grown out from its abdomen. Is this how the Tai Ching sect treats their guests? Wei Chengxi was enraged. He flew in front of the dragon and stared at the golden core cultivator on the dragon's head as he shouted. I am the Tai Ching sect's Dao Qing. Greetings, fellow Taoist from the 7 Possibilities sect. On the dragon's head was a middle-aged cultivator. 3 strands of long beard fluttered in the wind. He had a very calm expression as he bowed and spoke. However, at this moment, the dragon once again displayed its might. It raised its head to the sky and roared. Its body flew, and its huge dragon head entered the 7 Possibilities sect and the Imperial Thunder sect. Only when the dragon's head touched the Imperial Thunder sect's thunder ship did it stop. Ah! The Imperial Thunder sect's people were shocked. They trembled in fear and didn't dare to move. Xiao Hua's heart also turned cold. He immediately stopped cultivating the dragonization art. The dragon's head that was several times bigger than the thunder ship was touching the edge of the thunder ship. The snake's eyes, which looked even bigger than Xiao Hua's, were emotionless. It coldly scanned the people on the thunder ship. As if it didn't find anything, it suddenly hissed and flicked its tongue left and right on the thunder ship. Although Xiao Hua was very close to Little White in the past, the dragon's fierce aura enveloped the entire thunder ship. The snake's tongue seemed to be an extremely powerful magic tool. As long as it touched it, it could crush him into meat paste. How? How could he dare to move? Taoist Dao Qing, what is the meaning of this? Zhen Qing naturally didn't dare to move under the dragon's might. She shouted in a deep voice. Evil creature. Dao Qing clapped his hand and a strange jade rui appeared in his hand. He activated his magic power and waved it slightly. The dragon shook its head as if it was very unwilling. However, it couldn't disobey the jade rui's command. It could only open its mouth, raise its head, and fly back. Chapter 1600. Xiao Hua was currently under the snake's head. The fishy smell from the snake's mouth made him feel extremely uncomfortable. He thought to himself, damn it, Little White's mouth seems to be very fragrant. Why is this thing so disgusting? Dao Qing restrained the python dragon and stood on the dragon's head. He bowed and said, I wonder which fellow Taoist from the Imperial Thunder sect has graced my Tai Ching sect with your presence. I am Zhen Qing. Zhen Qing returned the greeting. Alright, I'll let fellow Taoist Zhen Qing know that the python dragon of my sect has never acted recklessly. Just now, it was the 7 skills sect's howling night ibis that provoked my sect. The python dragon ignored I's restraint and flew out. As for why it came to visit your sect's thunderboat, I don't know either. However, no matter what, it has disturbed your sect's disciples. My Taiqing sect will compensate. I will immediately report this matter to the deacon when I return to the sect. I hope fellow Taoist Zhen and the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect can understand. When Dao Qing said this, his voice wasn't very soft. Naturally, the disciples of the 7 skills sect could hear him. Wei Chongxi originally wanted to aggressively demand an explanation from the Taiqing sect. However, after listening to Dao Qing's words, he realized that it wasn't right. How could he blame the Taiqing sect's python dragon? How could he not know the temper of his own spirit beast? A few days ago, he was showing off his spirit beast in front of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples. Who would have thought that he would run into a hard nut today? The 7 skills sect's face was completely destroyed. Several of their disciples were even saved by the Imperial Thunder sect's thunderboat. After Dao Qing finished speaking, he glanced at Wei Chongxi. Seeing that he didn't intend to pursue the matter, he continued, this year, my Taiqing sect is holding the Feather Immortal Gathering. We've specially set the venue on the Flying Sky Peak. Everyone, please wait for a moment. I will summon my disciples and send everyone to the Flying Sky Peak. After he finished speaking, he sent out a yellow talisman. A moment later, a red-crowned crane flew over. On the red-crowned crane stood a mid-stage Foundation Establishment disciple. Dao Jing, send the fellow Taoists from the country of Shi's 7 skills sect and the Imperial Thunder sect to the Flying Sky Peak. Dao Qing instructed. Yes, disciple obeys. Dao Jing steered the crane and led the way. Zhen Qing and Wei Chongxi cupped their hands at Dao Qing and bid him farewell. They steered the thunderboat and the howling night ibis to follow the crane. Dao Qing stood on the python dragon and frowned as he watched everyone disappear. The actions of the python dragon today were indeed suspicious. Ignoring the fact that the provocation of the howling night ibis could make the python dragon fly out of the abyss of cultivation, just the fact that the python dragon had stuck its head onto the thunderboat of the Imperial Thunder sect disciples made him even more suspicious. Could it be that the thunder-controlling sect's thunderboat has something that the python dragon is interested in? But, that's not right. It seems that the boa dragon didn't pay much attention to the thunderboat after that. Unfortunately, the eyes of the dragon under Dao Qing's feet were slightly closed, as if it was asleep. Dao Qing didn't know how to ask, so after a while, he stomped his feet again. The dragon turned around and flew back to the Taiqing sect. Xiao Hua and the others steered the thunderboat and followed Dao Jing's crane to the west. At this moment, Wei Chongxi was somewhat listless and no longer had his previous arrogance. The 7 skills sect disciples didn't return to the howling night ibis's back and only stayed on the Imperial Thunder sect's thunderboat to chat with the disciples they were familiar with. In just a short moment, a small mountain floating in the air appeared before everyone's eyes. Countless clouds lingered below the small mountain. Although they still couldn't see the scenery above the small mountain clearly, just this scene alone made them feel like they were in a fairyland. The Yen Thunder Palace's Yen Thunder Palace was in the air. The Imperial Thunder sect disciples had seen it before, but it was only a palace. At a glance, they knew it was created by the Imperial Thunder sect's ancestors. The Taiqing sect's small mountain was very large. There was no need to mention its weight. If it was created by the Taiqing sect cultivators, how powerful would their divine ability be? However, if golden core cultivators like Zhen Qing swept their divine sense over it and didn't see any spiritual energy fluctuations, they would think that the small mountain was created by the gods. Then, who would believe it? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded like everyone else. He also stared at the huge mountain in a daze. When they got closer, they saw that the small mountain was indeed floating in the air abruptly. There was no place below it that was in contact with the ground. Thousands of clouds gathered and dissipated from time to time under the small mountain. It was no different from what they usually saw. Within the clouds, on the small mountain, there were green pine trees and green bamboos. The green mountains and clear waters reflected each other. Not long after, there were deer and young rabbits running away in a panic, startling the birds and beasts resting by the stream. The movement made people feel relaxed and happy. As expected of the Tai Ching sect. Such a quiet place is a good place to cultivate. Xiaohua looked envious and sighed secretly. Seniors, this is where the Tai Ching sect's disciples usually cultivate. It's called the Bright Realm. Because the Feather Immortal Gathering this time is related to the Bright Realm, my sect master specially held the Feather Immortal Gathering in the Bright Realm. Dao Qing held a horsetail whisk in his hand. He swung it naturally and said with a smile. When Zhen Qing heard this, she felt a little strange. She frowned and said, the Feather Immortal Gathering is held once every 10 years. This year, it's the Tai Ching sect's turn. What does it have to do with the Bright Realm? I'm going to keep you in suspense. Dao Jing smiled proudly and said, when the Feather Immortal Gathering is held, Senior Zhen will naturally know. Wei Chongxi snorted coldly and said, it's just an illusion. Who doesn't have it? Dao Jing had a good temper and didn't argue. He raised his hand and sent out a communication talisman. Then, he smiled and said, Seniors, please. Just as he said the word please, another signal flew into the sky from the southwest. What a coincidence today. 3 sects came in a row. Dao Jing looked at the signal and turned to ask Zhen Qing and Wei Chongxi, Seniors, do you want to go to the Bright Realm first or wait here for a while? Zhen Qing glanced at Wei Chongxi and said, I think we should wait here for a while. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome if we have to greet them after entering the Bright Realm. I have the same idea. Wei Chongxi said with a smile. As they were talking, a snow-white crane flew over from the southwest. Behind the crane, there was a dazzling phoenix boat that broke through the clouds in the sky and slowly flew over. Are you kidding me? When Xiaohua saw the phoenix boat, he had a strange feeling. My Imperial Thunder sect has 20 disciples. 1 lightning boat is enough. This phoenix boat is probably several times bigger than the lightning boat. This sect has 50 to 60 disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering? What's there to see? In the country of Xi, the country of Meng, and the country of Lian, other than the Huanhua sect, who else would be so bored? There are less than 20 disciples participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering. Why would they send such a big phoenix boat? Wei Chongxi snorted and said in a low voice. Huanhua sect. When Xiaohua heard this, he was overjoyed and his eyes lit up. If Fairy Hongxia had joined the Huanhua sect, it would have been several years. With Fairy Hongxia's talent, even if she hadn't reached the late stage of the 12th layer of the qi refining stage, she would at least be in the middle stage of the 12th layer of the qi refining stage. She would most likely be qualified to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. When he thought of Fairy Hongxia, Xiaohua's heaven-like beauty immediately appeared in his mind. The phoenix boat was very big and flew very slowly. When it stopped, there were indeed only a dozen disciples that flew down from the phoenix boat. The one in front was a golden core stage cultivator. When he looked behind the golden core stage cultivator, he saw that the dozen disciples were all handsome men and beautiful women. They were all talents. Fairy Hongxia. At the front of the dozen disciples, wasn't it the peerless Fairy Hongxia? Fellow Taoist Wei, fellow Taoist Zhen, I greet you. The golden core stage cultivator at the front also had long eyebrows and a sharp nose. He had a jade-like aura. So it's fellow Taoist Xiong Fei. It's been so many years since we last met, you're still as magnificent as ever. At this moment, Wei Chongxi's face changed into a smile as he went up to greet them. Zhen Qing also went up and cupped his hands in greeting. Xiaohua did not care about what the 3 golden core stage cultivators were saying. His gaze was always on Fairy Hongxia. Fairy Hongxia still had that cold look on her face. Her brows were slightly furrowed and she looked straight ahead, not looking at anyone else. Perhaps because Xiaohua had been staring at her for too long, Fairy Hongxia sensed something. She turned her head slightly and her gaze swept towards Xiaohua. Dong dong dong, Xiaohua's heart thumped. She's about to see me. However, when Fairy Hongxia's gaze swept past Xiaohua, it was as though Xiaohua was a stranger. She did not seem to stop. It can't be. Xiaohua's heart turned cold. Just as Xiaohua was feeling disappointed, Fairy Hongxia's face froze. Her gaze immediately swept back. When she saw Xiaohua's face clearly, her 2 eyes unconsciously widened. She actually stared at Xiaohua's face and stared. In her eyes was a trace of surprise and a trace of disbelief. Junior sister Hongxia, let's go. At this moment, a handsome figure stood between Xiaohua and Fairy Hongxia. He said to Fairy Hongxia with concern. Xiaohua frowned. When he saw the person's appearance, he was stunned. He naturally knew this person. It was Yun Guicheng, the person he saw when he participated in the Huanhua sect's disciple selection. This guy is also at the peak of Qi refining stage level 12. Xiaohua sighed inwardly. I actually forgot about this person. That day, Kaizhuxia said that this guy covets Fairy Hongxia. Thinking that Yun Guicheng and Fairy Hongxia were from the same sect, Xiaohua could not help but feel sour in his heart. At this moment, the leaders of the 3 sects had already greeted each other. They spoke as they flew forward. Yun Guicheng called Fairy Hongxia to follow behind Xiong Fei. Fairy Hongxia retracted her gaze and nodded slightly. She walked away without looking at Xiaohua again. Beside Fairy Hongxia, Yun Guicheng followed closely. The other disciples of the Huanhua sect were 2 steps behind them. This is. Seeing Yun Guicheng being so intimate with Fairy Hongxia, and then looking at Fairy Hongxia who did not look back, Xiaohua's heart ached. It was as if the dream in his heart had suddenly shattered. And after it shattered, it revealed his own delusion. Sigh, everything is just my delusion. Xiaohua laughed bitterly. I only met her once and did her a favor. Moreover, she has already given me the reward. What else am I thinking? It's impossible for a toad to eat swan meat. This made her thoroughly recognize Xiaohua's true colors. This person was indeed different from other cultivators. He seems to be really mysterious. Sun Shu stole a glance at the unwell Xiaohua and thought, the flying technique he used before was different from the one he used in the illusion. It seems to be the lightning evasion technique. He's only a cultivator at the early stage of the 12th layer, how could he practice the lightning evasion technique? He looks very dispirited. What's going on? When everyone reached the bright realm, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth that assaulted their faces shook their spirits. The spiritual qi here was more than twice as dense as what they usually saw. Xiong Fei released his divine sense and took a look. He smiled and said, fellow Taoist Dao Jing, why is the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the bright realms so dense? There doesn't seem to be any spirit veins nearby. Indeed, the formations around the bright realm don't have any traces of spirit gathering. I am also very surprised. Wei Chengxi also said while twirling his beard. Could it be that Senior Wei is also a formation expert? I've been disrespectful. Dao Jing didn't answer in a hurry and instead asked in surprise. Wei Chengxi had a trace of pride on his face. He smiled and said, "Not at all, not at all. I only learned a little from my sect's martial uncle for a few days." Hearing this, not to mention Dao Jing, even Zhen Qing, Xiong Fei, and the others had a trace of admiration on their faces. That's right, the study of formations wasn't something that ordinary cultivators could come into contact with. On the Daybreak continent, talisman masters, pill masters, and tool refiners were already scarce, not to mention masters who were proficient in even more profound formations. Xiaohua stood behind everyone and suddenly understood why the Deacon of Lightning Hall didn't dare to disturb the sect's formation master when he closed the formation in the eastern ridge. He also understood why the Lightning Tablet Daoist had to give in to the arrogance of the Swallow Thunder Ridge. Junior will keep everyone in suspense. Seniors, please take a look and see why the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the bright realm is so dense. Dao Jing put away his envy and said with a smile, "Let's go, we'll talk as we walk." Show off. Show off again. Xiaohua, who was at the back, disapproved of what he heard. Following the slow pace of everyone, he let out a cold snort. Sure enough, Zhen Qing, Xiong Fei, and Wei Chengxi had a trace of awkwardness on their faces. They looked at each other and released their spiritual sense as they walked. However, after walking for a while and looking around the bright realm, they all shook their heads. Wei Chengxi said with some hesitation, "Could it be that the bright realm's formation is a bit strange?" "It is a bit strange, but that's not the real reason." Dao Jing said with a smile. "There's a spirit vein in the mountain below us?" Xiong Fei stamped his feet and asked. Dao Jing shook his head, "Even if there is a spirit vein, isn't it too small?" Xiong Fei was a bit uncomfortable and turned to look at Zhen Qing, who was pondering with her head lowered. Zhen Qing didn't release her spiritual sense after scanning the surroundings earlier. At this moment, her head was lowered and she was looking at the ground. What's strange about the ground? Xiong Fei also lowered her head naturally. The ground below everyone's feet was grayish-brown soil mixed with gravel. There were some indiscernible radiances on the soil that seemed to be some reinforced formations. Why would there be formations on the ground for no reason? They might as well use some limestone or white jade to pave the ground. Xiong Fei couldn't see the reason and muttered in his heart. "Senior Zhen." Seeing that Zhen Qing seemed to have understood something, Dao Jing asked in a low voice. "Yes, I have thought about it for a long time and feel that what fellow Daoist Wei and fellow Daoist Xiong said is reasonable. Our sects also have paradises, but if there isn't a spirit vein, then there is a formation. Without these two, there is only a spirit eye. Could it be that there is a spirit eye in the bright realm?" Spirit eye. It was unknown what the others' expressions were, but Xiaohua revealed a strange expression. "What is a spirit eye?" Hearing Zhen Qing's words, Dao Jing seemed to be relieved and shook his head. Senior Zhen also didn't guess it. At this moment, a person from the Huanhua sect took half a step forward and bowed. "I'm Yungue Chong from the Huanhua sect. I've been racking my brains just now, but I still can't figure it out. Senior, please enlighten me. Why is the spiritual aura in the bright realm so abundant?" Yungue Chong walked out at the right time. Not only did he remove the awkwardness between the three sects, but his mischievous words also made everyone chuckle. "You little brat, your Uncle Master Dao Jing just wants to test your experience. You don't even think about it before you speak. You are so naughty." Xiong Fei glared at Yungue Chong and scolded. Yungue Chong smiled embarrassedly and retreated back to Fairy Hongxia's side. He didn't seem to be ashamed of being scolded by a senior. Qing Jing, who was next to Xiong Fei, blushed a little, as if Xiong Fei was talking about him. "I'll let the three seniors and fellow cultivators know." Dao Jing didn't dare to keep them in suspense anymore. He cupped his hands and said, "Indeed, what you said is about the same. It's just that, you've forgotten that there's a saying under your feet. It's called 'I'm destined to be in this mountain.'" Oh, hearing this, Zhen Qing slapped her forehead and said in realization, "I also had the same thought just now. Could it be? Could it be that the bright realm itself is a magic treasure? Xiong Fei and Wei Chengxi also understood and said in surprise. The three seniors are really knowledgeable. Dao Jing quickly praised, this bright realm is a magic treasure left behind by the founder of the Taiqing sect. Because it can gather the spiritual aura of heaven and earth, it was placed here as a place for the disciples of the Taiqing sect to cultivate. This is actually a magic treasure. Not only Xiaohua, but all the disciples who practiced qi were also surprised. They all lowered their heads and released their divine senses. However, just like before, the ground was like an ordinary ground. Their divine senses passed through it, and they couldn't find anything wrong with it. Only Zhen Qing and the other two golden core cultivators carefully observed it and didn't frown. Such a big magic treasure. What is it used for? Could it be used to smash people? Xiaohua stomped his feet and thought to himself, then, how much strength does it have? Oh, it shouldn't be strength, it should be magic power. Oh my, what cultivation level does the senior have to have so much magic power? What a powerful divine will. Seniors, the plaza where the Feather Immortal Assembly is held is at the center of the Bright Realm. Please follow me. Dao Jing and the others looked at it for a moment, then cupped their hands and flew up with everyone. The Bright Realm was really big. After flying for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a flat ground that was several hundred feet wide appeared in front of them. This flat ground seemed to be the peak of a small mountain. It was abnormally flat. There was a huge protrusion on the east side of the flat ground, which was blocked by a restriction. They couldn't see what was inside, but other places were normal. There were countless pavilions around the flat ground. At this moment, some disciples were sitting leisurely inside, meditating or talking. Seniors, this is where the disciples of the Taiqing sect usually cultivate. The Feather Immortal Assembly in 2 days will be held here. The resting places for the disciples of each sect have already been arranged. Dao Jing landed on the flat ground and pointed. Chapter 1602. What's this? Looking at the ordinary flat ground, Xiong Fei's gaze naturally fell on the east side that was covered by the forbidden spell and casually asked. This. Forgive me for keeping you guessing. Dao Jing also said casually. However, as soon as he said that, everyone had a faint smile on their faces. Dao Jing immediately felt that it was inappropriate. He blushed slightly and smiled apologetically, this thing is related to the Feather Immortal Gathering. I can't let you see it for now. You'll know everything when the Feather Immortal Gathering starts. Could it be an ambush? Xiaohua thought to himself. Xiong Fei's expression also turned serious. He said vigilantly, your Taiqing sect. Could it be that you have other ideas? Dao Jing smiled bitterly and cupped his hands, Senior Xiong, please be careful with your words. All the famous sects in the Three Kingdoms are participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering. How could my Taiqing sect dare to do anything? I don't think you dare. Xiong Fei waved his hand. However, his gaze did not leave the restrictive spell. He had been using his divine thought to scan the restrictive spell. Unfortunately, the restrictive spell was very strong. No matter how Xiong Fei looked, he could not see what was inside. Of course, Xiaohua and the others were also curious. Are the same sects participating in the Feather Immortal Gathering? Wei Chengxi looked away from the restrictive spell and looked at the disciples in different clothes in the pavilion. He said softly, which sects are not here? Dao Jing smiled, of course, it's still the same sections. Your country's Shanghua sect and Xuanyan sect, Lian country's Utopia sect, Xian Tian sect, Kunlun sect, and Nanming sect. My country's Changbai sect, Immortal Ascension sect, and Xianla sect. My country's 3 sects are close. I'm afraid they will only be here tomorrow. As for the other sects, other than Lian country's Kunlun sect, Nanming sect, and your country's Shanghua sect, all the other sects came yesterday. Then, Dao Jing hesitated for a moment and said softly, also. I seem to have heard. There's another sect participating. However, I don't know which sect it is. There are other sects. Zhen Qing, Wei Chongxi, and Xiong Fei looked at each other in surprise. It's not that I'm keeping you in suspense. I really don't know. Perhaps, we'll be able to see the results in the next 2 days. Dao Jing muttered. I've said so much. Actually, there are a total of 13 sections. Only the Xuanyan sect, the Utmost Happiness sect, and the Xian Tian sect are present. Including the Imperial Thunder sect, the Qiqiao sect, and the Huanhua sect, we don't even have half of them. Xiaohua glanced at Hongxia Fairy, who had a cold expression on her face. Xiaohua pondered in his heart, Utopia faction. I wonder which senior from the Utopia faction is here. It's a pity that Li Zongbao has only built his foundation a few years ago. No matter how much of a genius he is, it's impossible for him to enter the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. I'm afraid he won't be able to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Do they all live here too? Zhen Qing raised her eyebrows and asked, may I know who their masterminds are? I would like to pay them a visit. Alright, Senior Zhen, please no. The Xuanyan sect's Senior Jiang Changhong, the Xian Tian sect's Senior Jing Haojing, and the Utmost Happiness faction's Senior Ku Hui Chou. Dao Jing thought for a while and said, however, Senior Ku from the Utmost Happiness faction went to visit a good friend at the Human Spiritual Peak yesterday and hasn't returned yet. Only their deputy, Li Zongbao, is here. If Senior Zhen wants to pay a visit to Senior Ku, I'll send a messaging charm to you. Zhen Qing smiled and waved her hand, there's no need. Although we know each other, there's no need to send a messaging charm. We'll go and have a look together later. Great, hearing Dao Jing's words, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He didn't know how to pass on the message that Kaizhuxia had entrusted to him to Li Zongbao. Now that they were all here to participate in the Feather Immortal Conference, wasn't this the best opportunity? I'll tell Li Zongbao about this matter and I'll have a perfect explanation for Kaizhuxia. Sigh, beautiful women have short lives. Isn't this the case? Xiaohua looked at Fairy Hongxia in the distance and couldn't help but think of Kaizhuxia's lifelike face lying in the green stone coffin. Seniors and fellow cultivators, according to the rules of the Feather Immortal Conference, the resting places of each faction are not in the same place. Moreover, each faction is separated by a spell array. Only people with their own magic tokens can enter and leave freely. The spell array of each faction doesn't prevent messaging charms. If you want to go to another faction, you can use your messaging charms. Only when the spell array is opened can you enter freely. As Dao Jing spoke, he passed the magic tokens of each faction to the deputies of the 3 factions. In addition, when you're resting, please stay in this pavilion. It's best not to go too far from other places. Dao Jing thought for a while and said, the Bright Realm is the place where the disciples of the Taiqing sect cultivate. There are also places for training. They all rely on the power of magic treasures. Many places are not easy to control. If any of you want to go out and sightsee, you can ask the disciples of the Taiqing sect to lead the way. If you go out without permission and meet with any trouble, the Taiqing sect can't bear the responsibility. I know. Every year, the Feather Immortal Conference uses the same old method. Who doesn't know? Xiong Fei waved his hand and said. That's good. I'll return to the mountain to report. Seniors, please rest early. Tomorrow, at the E-Gathering, the Taiqing sect will send some foundation establishment and Qi refinement disciples over to exchange information with you. After Dao Jing finished speaking, he waved his hand and said to a few Qi refinement level 7 and 8 disciples who had flown over, bring the seniors and senior brothers of each faction to rest. There's a E-Gathering tomorrow. Xiaohua was delighted when he heard that. He hadn't been to the gathering for a long time and missed the time in Jingbua City. It seems that I have to refine more fireball charms tonight. Xiaohua thought to himself. However, just as this thought arose, Xiaohua scolded himself secretly, how stupid. Exchanging fireball charms with others and letting others use my own fireball charms to hit myself? The resting place of the Imperial Thunder sect was naturally different from the Huanhua sect. Xiaohua and Fairy Hengxia went their separate ways, and Fairy Hengxia didn't even look at Xiaohua from the beginning to the end. The Imperial Thunder sect was allocated a row of rather large pavilions. There were many rooms, and each room had a restriction. One could only enter with the corresponding magic tablet. Xiaohua held the magic tablet that Zhen Yu had given him and found his quiet room. Wang Yunxiao's quiet room was right next to Xiaohua's. Seeing Xiaohua open the restriction, Wang Yunxiao smiled and said, "That's good. I still have some cultivation insights that I want to share with junior brother Xiao. Can you come to my room later? I'm afraid I don't have time today. I still have other things to do. Let's wait for tomorrow." Xiaohua shook his head and said. Wang Yunxiao was surprised and asked, "Isn't this junior brother Xiao's first time in the Taiqing sect?" "Hee, of course it's my first time in the Taiqing sect." Xiaohua smiled and didn't answer Wang Yunxiao's question directly. He stepped into the quiet room and opened the restriction casually. Seeing Xiaohua walk into the quiet room, Wang Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and stared at the door of the quiet room thoughtfully for a moment. Then he also entered his quiet room. However, Wang Yunxiao didn't close the door of his quiet room, nor did he open the restriction. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua came out of his quiet room. He glanced at Wang Yunxiao's quiet room and stepped out of the row of pavilions where the Imperial Thunder sect was located. Naturally, there were qi refining disciples of the Taiqing sect in front of the pavilions. Xiaohua asked for the location of the pavilion where the Utopia faction was located and went without saying. After Xiaohua's figure disappeared, Wang Yunxiao also came out of the pavilion. He cupped his hands and smiled at the disciple who was on duty. "Where did my junior brother go just now? The deputy leader of my sect has something to ask him." That disciple was only at level 6 of the qi refining stage. He didn't dare to ignore Wang Yunxiao's question. He bowed respectfully and said, "Just now, my senior brother asked about the location of the Utopia faction. It seems that he is also going to the Utopia faction. Senior brother, you can send a message to him. If it is inconvenient for you, I can help you find him." Forget it. I'm afraid he is going to look for an acquaintance of the Utopia faction. Let's wait for him to come back." Wang Yunxiao waved his hand and turned back. In his heart, he muttered to himself, "Xiaohua, this guy. When did he and the Utopia faction? Oh, he can't be a spy of the Utopia faction, right?" However, Wang Yunxiao shook his head immediately. If he is really a spy of the Utopia faction, there is no reason for him to be so careless. How could he swagger around to look for people? Maybe. Wang Yunxiao's face showed a trace of a rare hideous smile. Some people just think that they are clever. They think that swaggering around will not be suspected. Well, Xiaohua is a disbanded cultivator. If he didn't have a great opportunity, how could he reach level 10 of the qi refining stage? This guy must have some secret on him. This secret must be related to the Utopia faction. After thinking about it, Wang Yunxiao could no longer sit still. He quickly walked out of the quiet room and chased after Xiaohua in the direction that he had just gone. Xiaohua asked the disciple on duty of the Taiqing sect and found the pavilion assigned by the Utopia faction very easily. Just as Dao Jing said, he couldn't enter the pavilion when he was about 3 feet in front of it. In front of the pavilion, there was also a disciple on duty of the Taiqing sect. When he saw Xiaohua trying to enter, he walked over and said with his hands folded, "Senior brother, you can send a message or message in. If it is inconvenient, I can help you report it." May I know which senior brother of the Utopia faction you are looking for? After thinking for a while, Xiaohua said with his hands folded, I am Xiaohua, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Please report to Senior Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction that I have something important to tell him. Oh, you are looking for Senior Li, Senior Brother Xiao, please wait a moment. The disciple on duty turned around and went in. Not long after, Li Zongbao followed the disciple out of the pavilion with a surprised look on his face. When Li Zongbao saw Xiaohua, his face was even more incredulous. He looked up and down, left and right, up and down, and said curiously, You are. Then he glanced at the disciple of the Tai Ching sect and said vaguely, Are you the Xiaohua from before? Xiaohua bowed and said, I am Xiaohua. Greetings, Senior Li. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.